which the paternity is not in question. And it is necessary for growth. And that is resilience. Madam Speaker, the author of Jamaica's resilient economic performance is this administration. The economy, as I said, Madam Speaker, gave us 20 consecutive quarters of growth between the last quarter of 2015 and the COVID interruption, and without doubt the best performance in employment generation in the history of independent Jamaica, with a most recent 3.3% unemployment rate. Again, Madam Speaker, no other government has been able to bring down unemployment to the levels that we have. We now have practically full employment, first time ever in the history of Jamaica.
Why? So much people now work.
Economic growth and job creation, now Ministry of Economic Growth and Infrastructure Development, is doing what it was set up to do. It is a well-performing ministry. Madam Speaker, the world order as we know it has changed. I know the present state of world affairs is troubling to most Jamaicans. Uncertainty, disruption, and seeming unfairness appears to characterize the new order. Our historic colonial experiences create an almost instinctive reflex that we will be victims in a world where raw power appears to be dismantling the protection of a rules-based system, where engagement is highly transactional and opportunistic. In the minds of the average Jamaican, they may not say it in this way, but if you were to distill the thoughts, the question is, how are we going to navigate this space as a small country and do more than just survive, but thrive? It is a real issue when we see happening almost regularly now, wars in distant places, weaponization of sanctions. It is a concern to the average Jamaican when the price of their goods rise, having nothing to do with them. As a small country, the sense of feeling powerless is real. But as Jamaicans, as Caribbean people, we don't just cover and say we are helpless. Our history tells us we must resist as a people. It is who we are, even in the face of power, unequal and uneven. We must resist. I think the first strategy, however, Madam Speaker, is that we must learn from our past. It is not the first time that the global order has changed in profound ways. We could go back to the Napoleonic era, but we won't go that far. Let's go to the post-World War II era, 1945 to 1950, when
History.
the actual multilateral system that exists now was formed. Born out of the ashes of global conflict, it is the most decisive and extensive ordering of global affairs in modern history. The United States of America and the Allied powers constructed a global order anchored on the formation of the IMF, the World Bank, the United Nations and the General Agreement on Tariffs on Trade, GATT, which we now call WTO. This multilateral order drastically reduced interstate conflict and enabled unprecedented economic growth over the last 8 years. It is not perfect, but it is better than anything that existed before. Madam Speaker, while multilateral rules-based institutions were being established, two other developments were happening in parallel. Many other developments were happening, but I want to focus on just two. The first is the emergence of what is called a bipolar power structure.
When I follow them as necessary, Angela talks.
At the time when it was emerging, the Cold War, two superpowers, the United
One
States.
thing, do you guys think all this history is necessary?
1947 and 1991, the world split into two competing blocs, the US-led Western Bloc and the Soviet-led Eastern Bloc, each with its own military alliances, economic systems, and ideological frameworks. The second process, Madam Speaker, was the process of decolonization. And this was accelerating. Empires could no longer afford their colonies. Resistance against colonialism internally increased, moving dozens of states to independence across the world. Asia in the 1940s through to the 1950s. Africa in the 1950s through to the 1970s. And the Caribbean in the 1960s.
Somebody, I'm like, what is going on?
The United Nations started in 1945 with 51 countries. Today, it has 193 countries. Newly independent states joining this new rules-based multilateral system essentially created a third bloc. And you would hear these terms being used, I certainly heard it when I was growing up, referring to this third bloc as the third world. So the new system of global order, when it emerged with two blocs, the Western Bloc, the Eastern Bloc, divided by a Cold War, a process of decolonization which gave states independence, creating a third bloc. Madam Speaker, the multilateral system afforded newly independent nations like Jamaica a voice and a vote. That was very important in the multilateral system. A voice and a vote. But, Madam Speaker, we had no power. We had no military power. And we had no economic power. Madam Speaker, both superpowers sought to control this third bloc, to expand their spheres of influence, secure strategic geographies, access resources and markets, and spread their culture and ideology, or simply put, to exercise hegemony. This was the context within which Jamaica started its navigation of a complex global system at its independence. At the outset, the Right Excellent Sir Alexander Bustamante, when asked about Jamaica's alignment, declared, "We are with the West." A simple yet profound framing of Jamaica's foreign policy, economic and social program, and political direction. The Jamaica Labour Party has always taken a pragmatic yet principled approach to the multilateral system and the vicissitudes of the poles of powers within it, while staunchly maintaining our independence of thought and agency to act in our best interest. position served Jamaica well. The period between 1962 and 1972 saw political stability, the fastest pace of growth and development of the Jamaican economy, and the build-out of our institutions. Madam Speaker, the period 1972 to 1980 of the Cold War era, the PNP government under Prime Minister Michael Manley changed Jamaica's political, economic, and social development policy and trajectory to democratic socialism, which also informed a change in Jamaica's foreign policy outlook. During that period, Jamaica joined the non-aligned movement and pursued relations with other socialist and communist countries of the Eastern Bloc, including Cuba. This was a fundamental and consequential shift based on an almost fanciful ideological aspiration. It placed us in the crossfire of a power struggle between superpowers which was not in our interest and had negative consequences domestically. This period coincided with the collapse of the Jamaican economy, our first debt crisis, the hollowing out of the middle class, and the emergence of widespread political and gang violence. Many of the challenges we face today are anchored in that period of our history. Now, look, I know what I have said here is going to stir up our answers, because people do feel very strongly about this period. But I don't think it is ventilated enough. Look, no, what I've said here is not opinion. These are the facts. These are the facts. If you ask me for my opinion, I will give you my opinion. Right? And my opinion is that I admire Michael Manley's intellect. I admire his willingness to challenge, but I also question his judgment. Madam Speaker, as it turned out, by 1991, the Soviet Union collapsed as a pole of power, and the multilateral system entered a unipolar phase dominated by the US, Western liberal globalization, and free markets. The global socialist experiment for which the PNP diverted Jamaica had been defeated and proven to be the wrong path to be pursued. Now, here are the facts. Michael Manley, and this is part of why I admire him as well, would come back to power a reformed man in 1989, abandoning the policy of democratic socialism, embracing the IMF, liberalization, privatization, free markets, and pursuing closer ties with the United States. And this is the part of the history that is not reconciled. Why did we go down that path?
Yes, people, this is Andrew Holness talking about the history of some type of the whole system. Why is the budget debate, but it come like say a history class? history class over here, so.
Jamaica would be far better. Far better. As we have seen with countries like Singapore, facing the same challenges, but maintained a strategic and wise foreign policy. Madam Speaker, today we see the global system changing again, moving from a unipolar world to now a multipolar world, with the rise of China, India, the reassertion of Russia, and the EU. There are now more players who can exercise military, economic, technological, and normative power within the multilateral system than when it was designed 80 years ago. This means there is likely to be greater contestation within the multilateral system and less automatic consensus on issues and solutions. There is also a greater likelihood of fragmentation, which is what we are seeing now, as powers seek to advance their interests unilaterally. It begs for a reform, urgent reform actually, of the global multilateral system. We cannot abandon it, but it must be reformed to take into consideration these new power dynamics that have emerged. In this dynamic foreign policy environment, Jamaica must be strategic. We cannot go down the road of ideological rhetoric. Been there, done that. Foreign policy is about having a clear framework of principles and values within which we pursue our interests, while treating with the interests and powers of others with whom we engage. My administration has always ensured that our foreign policy serves our economic interests. Whatever I do must make sure that Jamaica can recover quickly, that the person in Westmoreland whose house has not yet been restored, that the chances of a quick restoration is not hampered. And we see the benefits of our foreign policy efforts in the swift mobilization of relief and access to over $6 billion of reconstruction funds from the multilateral financial system. I want anybody to talk about foreign policy, because there's no other era in which Jamaica's foreign policy has delivered economic benefits for the people of Jamaica. A strong multilateral system is in Jamaica's interest, and we will always do our part to ensure it works. The essence of agency is that you act on your own will. As a responsible member of the global community, Jamaica will always take the necessary action to be compliant with all our obligations under the multilateral system. Nobody has to put sanction on us or force us, because we have agency. The country would have seen this in our actions when our actions caused us to be removed from the FATF and the AML-CTF grey list in 2024. Grey list, the way our structure and system was, it was reviewed, we ended up on the grey list. Every member of the government worked very hard, including members of the opposition, to pass the necessary legislation, make the necessary policy changes. I mean, there were those saying that these, imperialists imposing global financial things on us, people resist it. And what? Lose access to the international banking system? That's the logic of the argument. Yes, there are things we must resist when it comes to our values. There are things that define us as Jamaicans that we're not going to change on those. Man is a man, woman is a woman. We're not going to change on that.
Boy, go on, Andrew. Man is a man, a woman is a woman.
Look at the things that are also in our
go on, Andrew.
interest.
Talk again, talk the things.
Similarly, when concerns were raised with the government of Jamaica by the United States regarding the Cuban medical mission more than a year ago, I want you to pay attention to that.
Pay attention.
More than a year ago, we reviewed the program against our laws and the various multilateral conventions under which we have obligations. And let me say from the outset that the Cuban medical mission has been beneficial to the people of Jamaica.
Wow.
The Cuban doctors and nurses have assimilated quite well in our hospital system and have developed strong bonds with the people they serve. I can say that Jamaicans love them and want them to stay.
So what happened?
However, there were some aspects of the program which were brought to the attention of the Cuban counterparts, to include how personnel were paid.
Wow.
And run counter to our own laws and several international conventions. We were hoping
How shaggy shirt look like a girl shirt? So I don't understand.
could be made to the program to make it compliant and that we could have reached some agreement
Pan Sherry
where we
Shepherd
could
show.
continue to have the direct services
You know, see
of
it?
the Cuban health professionals who are.
Me love mix up here.
We continue to be hopeful that some agreement,
Or no see it.
some changes can be made to the program.
Wait a minute.
Continue to be. However, Madam Speaker, I want it to be noted and always acknowledged in the debate that every year since I have been Prime Minister and before, in this House, we have debated motions on the embargo on Cuba. Yes, my administration did that. Carrying on the position of the PNP administration and the JLP administration before and the PNP administration before. So this notion about abandoning friends and look here, man, keep that in the 70s. We are in a different era now. At all my speeches to the UN General Assembly, there are a few lines in there about Cuba and the embargo. When I spoke at CARICOM, I spoke fairly and frankly.
Go on, Andrew. What happened? Oh, the live ended.
At all my speeches to the UN General Assembly, there are a few lines in there about Cuba and the embargo. When I spoke at CARICOM, I spoke fairly and frankly.
Okay, the live done. I don't know why it done. I don't know why live in. Anyway, guys,
At all my speeches,
yeah, the live
to the
done.
UN General Assembly, there are a few lines in there
Wait, another.
about Cuba.
It's a live video ended.
When I spoke at CARICOM, I spoke fairly and frankly.
Let's see. No. Desktop audio. Okay, that video has ended, guys. So let me see, since me live already, let me see what else is going on today. Let's see what else is going on. But this is Andrew Holness live. What's up? There is a glitch. There is a glitch. With the live video on Instagram. Tap to play. Oh, it starts again. Let's see if I want to see if the live start back. Let's see, Jamaica Observer. Like Andrew battery done. Look like Andrew Holness battery done off of the phone. Let me see. Not that. Window capture. Okay. So it seems like the Andrew Holness live now works. So this is another. Oh my God, that's a place it look bad.
I felt something that no storm on earth can touch.
Why the place they look bad for real?
Indestructible resolve of
Look at that, man.
who have never, not once in our history,
Black
chosen
River
to
High
surrender.
School.
Madam Speaker, before anything else, we acknowledge with gratitude, humility, and reverence that God's hand was upon this island, and that we were spared the full measure of what hurricane.
If God when we up on him, you know, once when God hand not the penny.
Grace, Proverbs 22, verse 3
God
tells us
forgive
that
me.
a
But
prudent
me I
man
tell her.
foresees danger and takes precaution. Jamaica took precautions not only in the hours before landfall, but in the years before the storm. Madam Speaker, when Melissa was still days away, shelters were activated, evacuation orders were issued, and emergency
Why this budget
communications
debate sound different?
the public was kept
Is it
informed
budget
of the
debate?
trajectory of the hurricane and precautionary measures
Yes, it is.
taken through several public briefings and media announcements. We were as ready as this country has ever been for a hurricane. The investment this government has made in our security forces over the past decade, expanding personnel, equipment, and technology, growing our helicopter fleet, which turned out to be a very wise investment, strengthening our offshore patrol vessels, deepening our engineering and logistics capacity, paid dividends in those critical hours and days after Melissa struck. The seamless interface between national coordination and operational capacity was one of the defining institutional achievements of the Melissa response. It is a model we will build on, strengthen, and sustain. Madam Speaker, we would not be doing justice to the response if we did not also acknowledge what the experience exposed. Melissa stretched our systems. Logistics chains were strained. Fuel and maintenance capacity came under pressure. Maritime and air assets ordinarily deployed to border security and surveillance had to be diverted to humanitarian relief, creating windows of reduced coverage, which we cannot afford to ignore. These are not failures, they are lessons, and we are acting on them in recognition of the strategic importance of disaster management to national security. The government transferred the disaster preparedness and emergency management.
Computer one update.
This was not a bureaucratic organization, it was a declaration of national priority, positioning disaster resilience at the apex of the government's strategic agenda and creating the structural proximity between ODPEM, the JDF, and the effective civil-military cooperation that is needed to adequately respond to a disaster of this nature. As we strengthen ODPEM, we are not seeking to contain within its walls every capability Jamaica needs to manage disasters. ODPEM's effectiveness going forward will rest on the quality of its coordination with the full ecosystem of national capability, drawing on the entities with experience in digital infrastructure, cybersecurity resilience, geospatial data mapping, and spatial analytics. Madam Speaker, I want to point out that in the weeks immediately following Hurricane Melissa, something extraordinary happened. A moment when countries would have faced downgrades, economic uncertainty, and capital flight. All three major international credit rating agencies, Standard & Poor's, Moody's, and Fitch, reaffirmed Jamaica's sovereign standing with stable outlook. And Moody's went even further. They upgraded us. Now can you imagine? After a hurricane, the rating agency said, oh, you know, even with the hurricane, you have done so well. I'm going to maintain your outlook. Yeah. I just want everyone to stop and reflect on that for a moment.
Well, credit is due where credit is due to Andrew, because I think he do a lot for real.
Jamaica's resilience, not the word no, not stability. Jamaica's resilience, which is what we have put into the economy, is not only social and emotional, meaning our people's ability to withstand disaster, but it is also institutional in the agencies that we have created in terms of fiscal and economic. That credibility wasn't gifted to us, it was earned through years of disciplined, courageous reform and sound governance. And it has now become an asset we are deploying in the service of every Jamaican. And the results are already visible. The recovery from Hurricane Melissa is proceeding faster than anyone initially projected. But speed of recovery does not happen by accident. It is a product of fiscal strength deliberately built and strategically deployed. Consider what that means in practice. Within weeks, the government extended a loan of $150 million to the Jamaica Public Service Company to support the immediate restoration of electricity across the island. That single intervention accelerated the reconnection of communities, businesses, hospitals, and the resumption of the rhythm of life that so many Jamaicans depend on. Today, electricity and water have been restored to approximately 99% of customers.
What? 99%? What? That's not bad.
Let us be clear about what that made possible. A government that had maintained fiscal discipline reduced the difference between the family sitting in the dark.
So Andrew is saying 99% of the people in Jamaica get back electricity.
Getting back electricity.
Is that true, fam?
It's the difference between a farmer losing an entire It's the difference between despair and dignity.
That not sound bad if I say it go for true.
In its speed. Agricultural output has rebounded more quickly than anticipated.
Forgot to be on national YouTube.
Below projections, enabling the Bank of Jamaica to reduce its policy interest rate to 5.5% in February 2026 and revise its projection for full economic recovery down to 3 to 2 years from the earlier 3 to 4 years that was projected. Madam Speaker, we have proven our
I have a check on me, Pat.
Now is the time to claim
So forward.
of an economy. Resurgence. So you move from chaos to no growth to stability to resilience. And now, Madam Speaker, today, this budget is the first declaration that Jamaica will resurge. What is the difference between resilience and resurgence? Resilience is defensive. It is the capacity to absorb a blow and remain standing. Resurgence is forward-leaning. It is decision to move with purpose, with ambition, with a vision of something greater than what existed before. We will not simply patch what is broken. We will build forward stronger, smarter, and more equitably than before. The suffering of our Western parishes will not be a footnote in our national story. It will be the catalyst for our next great chapter. For Jamaica, adversity has been a full stop. It has always, well, Madam Speaker, let me read that properly. For Jamaica, adversity has never been a full stop. Has never been a full stop. It has always been just a comma, a brief pause before we rise again. We have endured, now we will build together. Madam Speaker, this government is leveraging our national resilience and international confidence as in order to translate it into a platform for accelerated national development. Through close engagement with our multilateral partners, including the IMF, the World Bank, the Inter-American Development Bank, CAF, and the Caribbean Development Bank, Jamaica secured US $6.7 billion in terms of a financial package within weeks of the hurricane. This is the largest and fastest mobilization of development financing in Jamaica's history, and it was made possible not by the hurricane, but by everything Jamaica had built before it. Madam Speaker, the discipline of yesterday is funding the resurgence of tomorrow. But financing alone is not enough. We must, as a country, confront an uncomfortable reality. While Jamaica has built one of the most credible macroeconomic frameworks in the developing world, the execution of large investment projects too often moves at a pace that belongs in another era. Layers of approvals, fragmented processes, and rigid procurement rules, though designed with good intention, can make it difficult to move quickly when transformational opportunities arise. In today's global economy, capital is highly mobile, and investors compare jurisdictions not only on stability and incentives, but on speed of decision-making and certainty of execution. Too often, promising opportunities have gone elsewhere, to countries that are simply more nimble. We cannot allow this to continue. Even recently, Madam Speaker, I have seen projects that were eyeing Jamaica investors got frustrated and have gone elsewhere. We are advancing two powerful and complementary reforms. One focused on how we build infrastructure and the other on how we attract and accelerate transformational private investments. NARA will have special powers, that is the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority. Will have special powers to accelerate development approvals as well as procurement, enabling the execution of resilient infrastructure projects at a scale and speed this country has never seen before. NARA is not only about project delivery, it is about project networking to create new economies in areas impacted by the disaster and to introduce the greatest expansion of our economy in the shortest period of time in our history.
Why this is a long history, Andrew Holness, I deal with.
Madam Speaker, NARA will turn a crisis into an opportunity for Jamaica.
Interesting. That sounds very interesting.
One of the most important lessons of Jamaica's economic reform journey was that execution requires not only institutional capacity, but credible, independent oversight.
Wow.
The economic oversight, the economic program
Share the live.
EPOC became internationally recognized as a model of transparent, civil society-led accountability that gave Jamaicans and international partners confidence that the fiscal program was being
An
implemented.
act, a bill entitled to make provision for
a
management
similar model
implementation.
for NARA called JAMROC, that is Jamaica Reconstruction and
Oh, NARA is National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority.
That JAMROC will be chaired by Professor Peter Blair Henry, a son of Jamaica, who is currently a senior fellow at Stanford University's Hoover Institution. He is a vice chair of the National Bureau of Economic Research. And I hear somebody say an academic, but this is this part of it. A member of the boards of Citigroup and Nike, who has risen to the very pinnacle of international economics and public policy, and who brings back to this country a lifetime of intellectual and practical achievements and a personal commitment to Jamaica's development that has never wavered. The search for NARA's chief executive officer is also well advanced, following an open advertisement.
So they're looking for people for the NARA group, Lord Jesus. There's that one other organization in Jamaica, I saw they have money.
A complementary reform to NARA addresses the investment attraction problem. We will introduce a new framework called Fast Jamaica.
Wow.
The facilitated acceleration of strategic transformation.
Facilitating acceleration of strategic transformation. Why the acronym are going to kill me? Not literally.
Will establish a dedicated pathway to fast-track strategic priority investment projects critical to Jamaica's economic transformation. Particularly those with an investment value
Oh, they must
of
wait so.
$150 million or more that can commence implementation within a year and could be integrated into the NARA network of projects.
Repeat that, Andrew.
The framework will focus on projects in sectors that will shape Jamaica's competitiveness.
Look like they not no AC in that building there.
Infrastructure, digital infrastructure and telecommunications, logistics, air and seaports, water, sewage and desalination, low-income housing and urban development, high-value tourism including wellness, medical and sports tourism, entertainment and the creative industries, STEM education and research, specialized
It look like
healthcare,
statue.
high-value agriculture and agro-processing, advanced manufacturing, and critical minerals, including rare earth elements. Cabinet
That a backside, critical minerals.
Cabinet will retain the ability to designate additional sectors where strategic
Where them a white man a come from?
Central to FAST Jamaica will be a strategic investment council, a high-level body tasked with the initial screening and evaluation of major investment proposals. The elements of this already exist between JAMPRO, PBJ, and the Cabinet Office. The Council will assess the strategic merit, economic impact, and national interest considerations of each proposed project and will recommend to Cabinet the most appropriate development modality, whether public-private partnership, joint venture, concession arrangements, or otherwise, as well as whether the project should proceed through direct negotiation or a competitive process. Projects approved by Cabinet will be designated strategic investment projects and will benefit from accelerated approvals across government, coordinated regulatory engagement, and dedicated facilitation teams to ensure efficient execution. FAST Jamaica will also allow the government, where appropriate, to engage with unsolicited proposals from investors.
Interesting.
That some of the most transformative projects originate from private sector proprietary knowledge.
Ways to make money.
FAST Jamaica is not about weakening safeguards. It is about modernizing how government partners with strategic investors in a fast-moving global economy. Fiscal exposure will continue to be rigorously addressed by the Ministry of Finance and the Public Service. Cabinet will retain full oversight of all final agreements, but what will change is the speed, coordination, and clarity with which Jamaica engages with major investment opportunities.
I see. So, he's developing a fast Jamaica.
Together, these reforms represent a fundamental shift in Jamaica's execution architecture. They answer the question that has haunted this nation for
Why the woman look tired?
why does so much promise take so long to become a reality?
They look tired and hot.
What we could have accomplished
Let me stop it.
So, Madam Speaker, NARA is established. We will have the legislation. I will take the legislation today.
So NARA is established. What NARA mean again?
We have interviewed 5 shortlisted
Look at the money lady, Faval Williams.
officer. We will make a determination shortly. We have selected someone to head the oversight body, and we will have conversations.
So they have a new organization. Blow. And do not waste time with the money if you invest here or whatever I'm going to do.
Established. The purpose of NARA is to take all the projects that we have had in development, or some of them in 513, and all the new projects, and coordinate their implementation.
So that's one organization for implement projects.
The government is leading. But that is not going to be enough. We need to crowd in the private sector, and that is why we have FAST working in complement with NARA.
But I mean, I know that, why that sound away.
This will work, Madam Speaker, when I go to show you all the projects that NARA will likely do, you will see that there are great opportunities for the private sector to come in.
I need to see the projects.
Every highway that we put in opens up lands for housing, low-income housing, for tourism, for agriculture, for manufacturing. Madam Speaker, NARA's first and most consequential mandate will be to prepare a comprehensive project and economic plan to deliver within the next 4 years.
Okay, so it's a 4-year plan. So NARA will have a 4-year plan.
Today, I lay out a transformative vision for Jamaica by highlighting several national projects across the length and breadth of the country. Many of these projects are not new.
Okay, so me see what they say for Hanover, Lucy Harbour, Mobile,
In some
this,
cases,
what that?
for decades,
Hip strip.
this
I
vision
can't say
was never
Falmouth.
the problem. What was missing was the mechanism to convert them from
You can't see
aspirations
that
into
good.
reality. The financing, the institutional architecture,
So
and
these are the
enabling
projects.
environment. We now have all of these. Some of these projects will be delivered through NARA, others will be executed through existing institutions and public-private partnerships operating alongside and in concert with NARA. What unites them all is a single coherent national vision. A Jamaica rebuilt stronger, planned smarter, connected more efficiently, and distributed more equitably. Where every region of this island is a functioning engine of growth, and where the resurgence we are claiming is visible,
So them a go do the
tangible,
Lucy
and
Harbour.
felt
Them a
in
go
the
fix
daily
it up.
lives of every Jamaican. I will highlight a few of these projects starting in the southwest. Black
Southwest that
Madam Speaker,
Black
I'm going
River.
to start in Black River. Because Black River tells a story
I saw me good with my direction. But
than one town.
I'm very good with my
It is the
compass.
story of the existential vulnerability
So
of
the
coastal
Nara will be
communities
starting in Black
to
River.
the intensifying force of climate change. Black River is one of Jamaica's oldest and most storied towns. Founded in the 18th century, it was among the first places on this island to receive electricity, piped water,
Oh,
the motor car, a proud maritime hub, the commercial heart of St. Elizabeth, gateway for the logwood and rum and pimento trade that shaped our economic history. The Georgian wooden houses along the waterfront, the masonry, mercantile buildings, the civic structures.
Andrew, no
all
history, man.
spoke to a town of character, history, and dignity. But Black River grew as many Caribbean coastal towns grew.
so they will be doing the market,
Its hospital, its courthouse,
seafront
its market,
protection,
its homes, all
and
concentrated
promenade.
along the coast, all exposed. For generations, that vulnerability was managed, tolerated, absorbed. But Hurricane
Interesting.
Melissa ended that. Storm surges of 8 to 14 feet tore along the Crane Road corridor. The historic waterfront was devastated. Civic buildings destroyed. Critical infrastructure severely compromised. Madam Speaker,
So
we will
town
not
reconstruction
treat Black
market,
River as it
seafront
was.
protection and promenade.
Build it
They
as it should
getting a new hospital, urban center.
and in so doing create something
That's good. That sounds like
this
a
town
plan.
has never possessed in its 300 years of history. A real planned, consolidated urban core. The Urban Development Corporation, working with our development partners, is advancing a climate-resilient redevelopment plan that separates what belongs inland from what belongs on the coast. The heart of the plan is the new urban center to be developed inland, safely above storm surge and projected sea level rise. And you can see a representation of where that urban center is going to be and what it, well, that's the waterfront, but what it could look like. So, this is where Black River's essential public functions, its hospital, courthouses, municipal offices, police station, tax office, schools, market, and transport hub will be consolidated into a planned, workable frontier precinct for the first time. It will have a proper town square, a civic park. The buildings will be designed to withstand Category 5 wind loads. Built on elevated platforms above projected sea level rise scenarios with utility corridors, drainage infrastructure, and emergency redundancy. The historic waterfront will be protected by a layer of coastal defense systems, submerged offshore breakwaters to dissipate wave energy before it reaches shore, a concrete seawall integrated with a continuous public boardwalk, and engineered revetments along the most vulnerable stretches of coastline. The waterfront will become what it always had the potential to be, a vibrant public amenity, an entertainment and tourism corridor, a place where boutique hotels and restaurants and cultural experiences make this stretch of Jamaica South Coast a genuine destination. So, the same questions that Melissa forced on Black River must now be confronted everywhere, and the answers must be guided by the same logic, applied consistently, deliberately, and at national scale. That logic can be distilled into 4 foundational principles that will guide how we plan, build, and invest going forward. The first principle is strategic spatial planning and risk-informed development. What happened in Black River happened because for decades, development decisions were made without regard to hazard mapping, flood risk, or climate projections. That must now change. Critical national infrastructure must progressively be relocated away from high-risk coastal zones. Hospitals, schools, utilities, highways, and logistic facilities must be positioned with full regard to storm surge, flooding, and sea level rise. Where we build is as important as what we build. The second principle is building redundancy in distributed systems across critical infrastructure. Black River's civic core was concentrated in one exposed corridor. And when Melissa struck, a single surge compromised everything simultaneously. That is not resilience, that is fragility. Our transportation corridor, power systems, water supply, telecommunications, network, and logistics systems must be engineered with backup capacity and distributed architecture so that when one part of the system is struck, the rest keeps functioning. Resilience is incompatible with single points of failure. The third principle is the integration of regional development and resilient economic clusters. The Black River Plan does not end at the town's boundary. It connects to housing developments, agricultural corridors, tourism infrastructure, and the regional road network across the South Coast. That is intentional. Resilience cannot be built by project. It has to be built by a network. Connectivity, roads, hospitals, schools, housing, energy systems, and government services must be planned together to create a self-sustaining regional ecosystem. The fourth principle is economic diversification and production resilience. A resilient nation is not only physically strong, it is economically adaptable. Black River's rebuilt waterfront will anchor not just tourism, but wellness, marine recreation, heritage experience, and culinary offerings rooted in St. Elizabeth's agricultural identity. That diversification, away from dependence on a single sector, any single market, any single source of economic activity, is the model for Jamaica as a whole. We must broaden our productive base. Madam Speaker, the redevelopment of Black River will embody all 4 principles. It will be proof of concept that Jamaica has learned lessons and that we are determined to apply them not just to the historic town of the South Coast, that is the Black River, but to every parish, every corridor, and every community of this island that faces the same challenge as we seek to build forward stronger. Now, Madam Speaker, I know the people of Black River are anxious. Your MP, I mean, I could only describe it as anxiety. He's also anxious. Particularly persons who own property in proximity to the coast that sustained damage. there's a certain level of uncertainty. They're not sure whether or not they should rebuild, restart. Many of them have reached out to say, Prime Minister, I don't want to restart. In fact, there are several who have said, you know, I was even contemplating coming out of business. Melissa's hastened the decision, but they want some indication so that they can figure out how to plan. And we hear on our side the magnitude and scale of what we are planning to do can't be rushed. We can't make wrong decisions. So we have to think these things out carefully, put in place the systems and the structure. So today I would have laid out for you the NARA, which will manage it, the legal framework under which it is going to be managed. So we're well there. So I would say to the people of Black River, we have identified suitable lands to support a structured program of relocation and reconstruction for housing and business. For businesses, the town of Black River, for businesses in the town of Black River, the UDC has been asked to begin dialogue with property owners regarding acquisition of property and relocation where necessary. Madam Speaker, I don't want to say too much here because I know how, you know, what leaves here and lands there might be two different things. So I prefer that the entity, I have tasked them to go and start the dialogue, that they go and speak to the people directly. After agreement is reached, then you can speak publicly. Early next month, various agencies of the government will begin the consultations and sensitization with specific communities in Black River and along that corridor regarding relocation of their communities. The truth is there are just some communities that proximity to the swamp, threat from the sea, when we look at all of the risk maps that the best option is to relocate. But we know how difficult this is. And so we will handle this in a very sensitive way. We will ensure in a very transparent way as well. We will ensure that nobody is at a loss and that livelihoods are enhanced as a result of it. It is not something that is going to happen overnight. We acknowledge this, but it is something that we must do. So we will start the conversations individually with them. Madam Speaker, as you can see, there are several exciting transformational projects planned for the southwestern region, including Fonthill. Yes, with its world-class ecotourism potential, Fonthill is down for development. The airport in Little London, which was already announced, that will be brought on to the NARA project sheet. And the new urban center in Negril, that as well will be brought on to the NARA sheet. And I wanted to just draw your attention to the road network. There, the lines in red are showing you new highways and corridors that will be built. One of them will be the extension of the east-west highway from the Williamsfield leg bypassing Spur Tree, and then there is another corridor which will not run on the coast but more inland, but will connect to where the new Black River Urban Center will be. So all of these roads will be under NARA, and they will be started and completed within the next 4 years. In fact, these roads should be completed in the next 3 years. What we learned from the hurricane is that in the immediate few days, we did not have access. The roads were impassable, they were blocked. And, you know, one of the problems was just how the road was built. We had no challenges with the highways. No highway was blocked. because these roads were built to different standards, different drainage provisions were made. Now, St. Elizabeth, which didn't have it before, will now have 2 modern highways traversing the parish. Madam Speaker, I now turn to the northwest end of the island. Relax a bit. No, but the member, just to put the member at ease. What I'm presenting here are, large-scale reconstruction projects. And so for Westmoreland, you would have heard what we're going to do with Negril and so forth. But for the other areas, it is mostly housing reconstruction. So I will address that. I will address that under a different modality. So, Madam Speaker, anyone who has driven from Montego Bay to Negril knows the bottlenecks at Hopewell and Lucy. This is not just a quality of life frustration, it is an economic cost. Every hour of unnecessary journey time is a deterrent to tourism investment. A disincentive to the visitor's experience and a brake on the development of Hanover's enormous untapped potential. Madam Speaker, Hanover has so much potential, but it is, almost like an interland in Jamaica. And in the same way that we have opened up St. Thomas, we will open up Hanover for development. The government will advance the Hopewell and Lucy bypass, running through a connection point on the Long Hill bypass, which is already under construction. In St. James, traversing westward with link road serving both Hopewell and Lucy before terminating on the westward side of Lucy. The alignment will run approximately 3 kilometers south of the existing coastal road. This will unlock the entire waterfront stretch between Montego Bay and Negril as prime resort lands. In addition to the bypass, we intend to develop the Lucy Harbor.
So now he's at the western side of the island. Let's hear what he say. What am I say?
Sheltered from the prevailing winds, with deep natural water and proximity to emerging resorts on that belt between Montego Bay and Negril, Lucy Harbor has every natural attribute required to become a...
Pick up all the Hanoverians in our chat. But me not hear say Lucy a flood out. Didn't fix that yet?
We will do to create the economic incentive, but this is a perfect project for private sector. And so NARA will stimulate, facilitate, coordinate, but more than that, get it done quickly.
Oh. NARA is a fast organization.
Is similarly at risk for storm and wave action. It's, in other words, it faces the same threats as Black River. In fact, probably worse, because Lucy is actually below
sea level.
So I wish to indicate here that consideration is being given to the eventual construction of a new town center for Lucy when the bypass that we have spoken about is complete. So we won't do it in this round. We can't take on too much, but let's do the bypass first, and then we do the urban centers.
Oh, sound like a plan.
Madam Speaker, I want to talk about St. James, Montego Bay in particular.
My place.
Was written to by,
again.
One of the tourism interests in Montego Bay, expressing real concern about the state of the town, how it looks, the collection of garbage,
Wow.
public facilities that are there, and there is a real concern raised, and I want the tourism community to know that the government hears your cry. We're not just sensitive to it, we're working to have it addressed. One of the big issues which I know is a challenge is the collection of municipal waste, collection of garbage.
Garbage.
And I'm sure Minister Mackenzie will address this at some point, but you recall when we said we have over 500,000 truckloads of debris to move, we have made a dent on it, but it has been at the expense of the diversion of the limited stock of equipment that we have from.
So they still haven't cleared the garbage yet.
Debris management operations. I think very shortly we will have to bring the debris management to either a pause or an end so that we can refocus on the municipal issues. So I want to indicate to the people of St. James, yes, we hear you, and we're going to address this problem.
All right.
Madam Speaker, Montego Bay is our
Damon Crawford look like he's tired.
We undertook new investments to revitalize and secure its position as the leading destination in the Caribbean. Hurricane Melissa inflicted severe damage across Montego Bay, particularly in the coastal communities of Catherine Hall and West Green and Freeport. Destruction was painful, but it has given us something valuable, a once-in-a-generation opportunity to reimagine this corridor in a way that is bolder and more resilient. But we must first protect the city, which is a key pillar of Jamaica's economy. Montego Bay has long been vulnerable to flooding. Its rivers, when overwhelmed, have repeatedly brought misery to communities. The government will therefore undertake significant investments in river training to contain, manage, and direct floodwaters away from communities and commercial areas and critical infrastructure. The people of West Green and Catherine Hall will be very happy to hear this. And downtown Montego Bay, yes. Madam Speaker, the Montego Bay Freeport and its surrounding areas represent one of the most strategically valuable and scenically spectacular stretches of real estate in the entire Caribbean. It is home to our mixed-use cargo and cruise ship port and the Montego Bay Free Zone, and is flanked by major hotels, premium residential developments, and a forthcoming 28-story mixed-use hotel and residential complex, a powerful signal of the confidence that investors already place in this corridor. At the same time, the soon-to-be completed Montego Bay Perimeter Road is fundamentally reshaping the economic geography of the wider region, opening new corridors and unlocking additional lands for investment that were previously out of reach. Our plan is to gradually relocate the BPO and light industrial activities in the free zone to new purpose-built facilities along the Montego Bay Perimeter Road, catalyzing vibrant economic activity along the emerging corridor while providing modern, world-class, purpose-designed spaces. The thinking and the beauty of this strategy is that this will free up prime waterfront lands on the Freeport Peninsula for their highest and best use. We envision a landmark mix.
That's what the vision is like.
Retail and premium residential seamlessly woven into the urban fabric of the city. Comparable in ambition and elegance to the celebrated Brickell waterfront in Miami. And at the heart of this vision will be a performing arts theater. It always is a puzzle to me. Every hotel has to have their own entertainment package. You know, we could invest in developing real premium entertainment if we had a proper performing arts center. You know, we could even invite Broadway to come and have plays.
What? Andrew have some eye dreams, man.
Having to be stuck in the
Yeah.
Locals can have
Andrew has some cool vision, you know.
So the thinking and
As bad as all them are, some people are rushing. You have some good vision, man.
so when the free port was developed along the coast, very important that it was actually coastal, so that because it's close to the port as well, because the idea was like manufacturing, you get on a ship and you go. But things have kind of changed a little bit, because most of what the work that the free zone is doing has nothing to do with shipping. We ship it via email. In other words, the free port is now doing digital services. BPOs, they don't need to occupy valuable premium portland. So where they need to be is actually beside efficient public transportation, so people can get to work easily. Right now it's chaos to get into the free port. So just this move is going to increase the efficiency of the town, but increase the value and productivity. And redirect traffic from outside of the town to allow Montego Bay to be able to breathe. Madam Speaker, the vision does not stop at Freeport. What we are proposing is the transformation of the entire coastal corridor, from the Freeport sweeping eastward to Harmony Park Beach, along the waterfront, and all the way to the iconic hip strip. This breathtaking stretch of Caribbean coastline will be unified into one seamless, world-class leisure, entertainment, and shopping corridor. The top road. Minister, what's the proper name of the top road? The Queen's Drive. The president of Montego Bay. Top road, as we all know it. Very few people know it as Queen's Drive. The top road will be dualized. That's a very important point. The top road will be dualized to handle traffic efficiently, while the bottom road will be progressively pedestrianized. As well as the hip strip itself.
That's very interesting.
A walkable waterfront of rare beauty and vitality, connecting the cruise ship port to all the way to Harmony Beach Park and Dr. Scale Beach, and every restaurant, bar, gallery, and shop along the hip strip. It's always a disappointment.
That sounds like a good vision.
We have an all-inclusive culture. We call it the all-inclusive. But really, if you think about it, it's really all-exclusive. Right? If it were truly all-inclusive, you would come to your hotel and you would be able to walk outside, go on the strip, go to the market, sit down in a restaurant. You would be able to move around the city.
That's good.
And that's what
and be safe.
When we talk about transforming tourism, that's what we really have to do.
That's good.
Right? We have to do that. So we're going to use the opportunity.
Could I make two battles or chat?
To just deal with these matters once and for
Oh,
all.
that Andrew got to do with the money, the money where Andrew get, he's investing it in the country.
Madam Speaker, we're also examining ways to enhance the elegant corridor between Sunset International Airport and the Montego Bay Convention Center. It's called the elegant corridor. I must tell you, it still has some elegance to it, but it needs a refresh. Yes, it needs a refresh. So we're going to be examining ways to do that. One of the big challenges with the elegant corridor, the Minister of Tourism will tell you, and I'm saying this for the hearing of those persons who operate hotels along the corridor, is the noise pollution. You see, Madam Speaker, when the North Coast Highway was being developed, that section was technically supposed to be a boulevard. Right? So, in designing cities and towns, streets lead on to boulevards. So streets empty traffic onto boulevards, and boulevards carry them onto highways. But what has happened is that this road is neither a boulevard or street, or it is playing all these roads. And it is carrying heavy traffic like a highway, but people have to exit to go into the hotels or go into the business places. Worst of all, and what really sometimes I'm very distressed when I see it, the hop, skip, and jump of workers trying to move across the road to get to the hotel. It does make sense. So that entire elegant corridor has to be redefined and re-engineered.
That sounds good.
With soundproofing by building natural sound barriers, grade separation and tunneling so that you can move across, and building. There is enough space in several areas to also build a kind of local road that connects all the hotels. Then you go under or over, and you're onto golf course or to really make the tourism product more seamless and of greater value and greater attractiveness. Madam Speaker, Black River, Madam Speaker, like Black River, Falmouth is a case study in the existential vulnerability of low-lying coastal communities to the intensifying impacts of climate change. The flooding of the town, the failure of its drainage infrastructure, and the severing of its road connections during Hurricane Melissa were not random misfortunes. They were the predictable consequences of a town whose layout, institutions, and infrastructure were simply never designed for the climate realities we face today. We cannot simply rebuild what was there. We must fundamentally reorganize Falmouth. I see, Madam Speaker, a big smile on the Member of Parliament for North Trelawney, who, unlike most MPs, she actually lives in her constituency and lives in the town of Falmouth. All right, member from Southwest St. Catherine. The drag line, Wells lives in your constituency. Good. Good, Rose, good.
One thing with Andrew in don't boring at all.
The drag line, which is the critical drainage canal running east to west through the town, provides a natural organizing boundary. It is both the town's most important piece of infrastructure, and as Melissa demonstrated, it is the most neglected. Major infrastructure works will be undertaken to clean it and progressively modernize it into a functional water feature that both protects the town and enhances the remarkable Georgian character. Again, this will be a project.
Falmouth is also below sea level.
But more than that, the drag line will serve as a boundary between two distinct and complementary zones of reimagined Falmouth. North of the drag line, closer to the sea, the focus will be on what the waterfront does best: tourism, heritage, recreation, and coastal protection. The magnificent Georgian historic core, the Albert George Market, the Falmouth Courthouse, the Tharp House Complex, the churches, and the Baptist Manse will all be preserved as far as possible. The cruise port and the waterfront will be enhanced and activated as world-class visitor experience.
Wow.
South of the drag line, we will build the resilient civic backbone that Falmouth has never had. The hospital will be relocated inland. It's a very important point, members. Madam Member of Parliament, we will be relocating the Falmouth Hospital inland. We have identified somewhere. We'll make that known as soon as we have finalized the land.
Oh, they're going to relocate the hospital.
This will be away from the flood zone with direct access to the North Coast Highway so that it remains fully operational precisely when it is needed most.
So when them ask what Andrew they go do with the money we ain't get,
Madam Speaker, during the pandemic,
this is what he's planning to do with it. He's investing it in Jamaica.
but I wanted to commend the farmers workers in particular as I visited them. Very difficult circumstances, but like everywhere else, they were there doing their service.
Very interesting.
A new urban center will be built to modern standards of climate resilience and will consolidate critical public services and give people of Trelawney the standard of public facilities they deserve. Further south, and I want Minister Grange to pay attention to this one.
What?
Further south, anchored by the Trelawney Multipurpose Stadium at Florence Hall, we will finally deliver on the promise this facility has always held. We will be developing the area into a world-class sports center for sports training, major events, and sports tourism.
All right. That sounds good to Babsy Grange.
While building around it vibrant housing and a commercial nucleus.
I may have to go get one of them house there.
Economic life to this corridor. Madam Speaker, we have had several proposals come to use the Trelawney Stadium, but the government was never fully in a position because, Madam Speaker, what to convert this into
I'm going to do a quick part because I don't look at Andrea go finish for now.
would require not just the
I'm going to run a quick boat.
we would have to put in place infrastructure, water, proximity to working and resilient health facilities, proper housing, all the things that would be required to make such a facility work. So we were never in a position then to do it. But today, Madam Speaker, we are bringing all the infrastructure. We're bringing all the infrastructure together. So this can actually now become a center of economic activity in sports. The Minister of Tourism sent me a note to say that I forgot to mention the upgrade of the Montego Bay Convention Center. Yes, under these projects, the Montego Bay Convention Center will be upgraded in addition to the re-engineering of the Elegant Corridor. Madam Speaker, I now move to the northeastern section of the island. Madam Speaker, the North Coast Corridor and the Draxall and Marby Bay stretch in particular has become one of the most rapidly developing commercial zones in Jamaica. New businesses, new housing developments, new hospitality enterprises, and new entrepreneurial energy have concentrated in this corridor with remarkable momentum. The government wants to support and deepen that energy, not for it to be strangled by the congestion, but for it to be able to properly carry the traffic load of the area. On major event weekends, traffic snarl from miles from St. Anne into neighboring Trelawney. The North Coast Highway capacity has been exceeded by the very growth it helped generate. And attempting to upgrade a heavily used roadway while traffic is still flowing through it, as we learned from the South Coast Highway Improvement Project, causes disruption and dislocation that simply cannot be absorbed by communities and businesses that depend on the corridor for their livelihoods. The solution is to build the alternative first. Detailed feasibility studies are being completed for the North-South Highway Extension Project. The proposed extension consists of two segments branching from a new grade separated interchange near Marby Bay, westward to Discovery Bay in St. Ann, and eastward to Tower Isle in St. Mary. Together, these extensions will create a high-speed tolled alternative to the existing North Coast Road, diverting through traffic away from the congested commercial corridor, reducing journey times dramatically and unlocking the tourism and investment potential of the wider North Coast and St. Mary to the western parishes. Once the North-South Highway extension is sufficiently advanced, the North Coast Highway Improvement Project will follow, upgrading the existing alignment from Montego Bay to Draxar, including the dualization of key sections where traffic volume is a chapter of growth along Jamaica's most visited coastline. Madam Speaker, I now turn to the eastern end of the island, Port Antonio. Port Antonio is unlike anywhere else in Jamaica. It is the birthplace of Caribbean tourism, the town that first showed the world what Jamaica could be, drawing Hollywood legends, royalty, and the world's most discerning travelers to its twin harbors and extraordinary natural setting. It deserves a future worthy of that legacy. As I have reported to this Honorable House on previous occasions, the Port Authority of Jamaica, working with international consultants, town residents, elected officials, and government agencies, developed a master plan for Port Antonio built around a clear and compelling vision. A high-value, low-density tourism destination that preserves the unique history and character of this irreplaceable town while unlocking its enormous, unrealized potential. We are now moving from planning to delivery, starting with the Port Antonio bypass. Madam Speaker, sometimes, I'm doing this now 11 times and going through all the projects and the plans. I can just imagine that the people listening might say, but you said this already, or here goes another plan. But the beautiful thing is that having seen these plans from conception to inception, it is just an amazing feeling. So I recall when we were doing the discussions about how are we going to develop this beautiful asset of Port Antonio. And we recall that when the sewer lines were being put in, I believe by the opposition at the time was the government, the chaos it created in the town. Well, yes, we got the money, but they implemented. Right. So, but it was chaos in the town, just to put in the sewer lines. And so the thought was, if we can't do any further development in the town, because the development itself may kill the town. So what we have to do first is to do the bypass. We have to create an alternative so that traffic can flow whilst we do, because of the significant development. So we announced the project, and Madam Speaker, and I'm now pleased to say that the project, man is man, woman is woman. Mr. Speaker, I'm pleased to say that this project has started. This is an $81 million project, and it is an essential precondition for everything else the master plan will seek to achieve. This 18-kilometer corridor will be delivered in 2 phases. The first spanning Norwich to Turkle Crawl Harbour, and then 7 kilometers of 4-lane roadway, new bridges and upgraded drainage, built inland and elevated to protect against storm surges and coastal erosion. By diverting through traffic away from the historic town centre, the bypass will give Port Antonio the space it needs to become the premium destination the master plan envisions. Beyond relieving congestion, The bypass will open new corridors for housing, commerce, and economic activity. And as I've said, works has already begun. The broader master plan will deliver 4 transformational elements: a new cruise terminal in the East Harbour, paired with high-end hotels and villas on the Folly Lands, which will establish Port Antonio as a premium cruise destination unlike any other in the region, intimate, authentic, and famed by some of the most spectacular scenery in the Caribbean. The cricket grounds will be enhanced into a modern multi-purpose sports and entertainment amphitheater, activating this underutilized asset and bringing major events to Portland for the first time. A new pedestrian promenade along the shoreline will connect the east and west harbors, transforming the waterfront into a continuous walkable space for residents and visitors alike. And a new public park will give the people of Portland a world-class recreational amenity on their doorsteps.
Okay, so he's planning. That's the plan for Portland.
These pictures that you are seeing are not just, promotional rendering. Actual architectural design.
When you drop on super chat pan the video now. Super chat, drop on super chat pan the video.
All of this, Madam Speaker, is the Boundbrook Urban Center.
I think this is the before and that's the after.
We are building urban centers.
Good.
The Boundbrook Urban Center is
Share the live, people.
like the Morant Bay Urban Center.
Share the live.
Will be an integrated commercial hub combining public and
This
private
is very
services
interesting.
in one location. Madam Speaker, the development of the new port, and I want this is the Morant Bay Urban Center, where the bypass starts. So it connects there. So, Madam Speaker, the development of a new port in St. Thomas has been discussed for some time. The original intent was
All
to
right,
develop an aggregate
back in the
port
kitchen.
to serve the growing demand for construction materials in regional markets such as Guyana and Suriname. However, Hurricane Melissa fundamentally expanded our thinking. Hurricane Melissa served as a stark reminder of the vulnerability of Jamaica's southern coastal line and the existential threat that a direct strike on Kingston would pose to the port of Kingston, and by extension to the nation's ability to recover from any such disaster. As a result, the government will now not only develop an aggregate port for export, but one with capacity for mixed usage such as the Reynolds Pier in St. Anne. This port will serve as a critical backup to the port of Kingston in the event of a major disaster, while simultaneously driving economic growth and creating much-needed employment opportunities for the people of St. Thomas. Subject to more detailed feasibility studies, the Port Authority has identified a site near Yala, St. Thomas, that benefits from adequate coastal depth and vessel berthing, proximity to established quarry operations, and road access via the newly completed highway. Madam Speaker, the Port of Kingston is now one of the fastest growing ports in the entire hemisphere, and we are determined to ensure that our infrastructure keeps pace with that growth. We are undertaking a series of transformational projects that together will create the largest concentration of near-port logistic lands anywhere in the Caribbean. The first of these is the $80 million Westland projects already underway, which will add 15 acres to the Kingston Freeport Terminal, increasing cargo storage capacity by more than 25%. The second involves the realignment of the Marcus Garvey Drive to the northeast of Tinson-Pen and the incorporation of the Tinson-Pen lands into an expanded near-port corridor. No, it's very consequence. A portion of these lands is already being actively utilized for automobile logistics. a clear signal of Kingston's emergence as a regional hub in a dynamic sector, and a preview of the far greater potential that lies ahead. Madam Speaker, inadequate drainage infrastructure along this corridor has resulted in disruption of operations from even moderate rainfall. The National Works Agency, in collaboration with local and international consultants, has completed comprehensive studies for a drainage system designed to efficiently convey stormwater to Hunts Bay. We will move decisively under NARA to finalize the designs and implement this solution. The truth is, Mr. Speaker, we can't expand the port without doing this drainage project. Madam Speaker, speaking of drainage, the Kingston metropolitan area is urgently in need of serious work on its most critical drainage infrastructure. That is the Sandy Gully, which is the city's main defense against flooding. This was built some, 70 years ago? Almost 60 years ago? More than 60 years ago. So, and it really has not had a major overall. Just to explain to the country how that drain works and why we need the drain. If there is a weather system that is coming off the Kingston Harbor and it is going across Kingston, it is going to meet the hills of St. Andrew. And what that will do as the precipitation moves against the hills is that all of that will fall as rain. It will come down the hill, and if it doesn't get into the Sandy Gully and go into the sea, it will flood the Kingston Plain. And so that's why it was built like that. So it actually takes the water coming off the hills for any heavy precipitation. But the gully as it is, because the inverts and the other infrastructure that support it, they are aged. And so they are falling apart. So under NARA, yes, thankfully, the gully was not damaged. The Sandy Gully was not damaged by Melissa. But because we have a resilience mandate, we know that this is a key piece of infrastructure that is needed for Jamaica's resilience, and therefore the reconstruction of the Sandy Gully will be a major project. Anchoring the entire logistics ecosystem is the Cape Manners Special Economic Zone, Jamaica's flagship logistics project. The Cape Manners Special Economic Zone is designed to complete Jamaica's transition from a transit met hub to a fully fledged logistics center for the region and beyond. The first phase will be developed over 4 years at a cost of $8 billion, covering 200 acres of the 700-acre property, generating hundreds of direct and indirect jobs during construction alone. Taken together, the Westland, Tinson Pen, and the Cape Manners Special Economic Zone project, which has started. These three investments will assemble the largest block of near-port logistic lands in the region, placing Jamaica firmly on the pathway for fulfilling our national ambition of becoming the fourth global node in logistics alongside Singapore, Dubai, and Rotterdam. Madam Speaker, these are the exact words that were said by the former Minister of Industry and Commerce, who is now the Member of Parliament for Western St. Andrew, which shows that, and he knows, I've always, where credit is due, give credit. You don't have to originate all the ideas, right? The brain is not all in one head. I know I see myself, yes, I like to think myself as a great thinker and conceptualizer, but I prefer to be thought of as the great builder, the one who does it. Speaker, when major disaster strikes, the ability of the state to function, to coordinate, to communicate, to make decisions, to serve the people depends on having facilities that can withstand the impact and continue operating in its aftermath. Hurricane Melissa exposed the vulnerability of the government itself. Jamaica currently houses its ministries and departments and agencies in a patchwork of aging, scattered buildings, many of them structurally inadequate, poorly connected to each other, and wholly unprepared for the demands that a major disaster places on government operations. Madam Speaker, the government will advance the development of the government campus at National Hero Circle as a national priority. The vision brings together Jamaica's House of Parliament, key ministries and agencies into a single purpose-built campus. In the post-Melissa context, the government campus is more than a statement of national pride. It is a strategic investment in the continuity of government. Madam Speaker, this Parliament could never have withstood Hurricane Melissa, or even a slightly lower hurricane. And I think it is now a moot point, Mr. Speaker. I think every member of Parliament here serving in this building would have to agree. The building has served us well, put it that way. But it really cannot carry us much further. Madam Speaker, resilience is not only our road and bridges. Resilience must also include our health facilities. Kingston Public Hospital as a historic and venerated as it is, has stood for over 300 years. 300 years. It is vulnerable, and had Hurricane Melissa struck Kingston, the consequences could have been more catastrophic, potentially damaging or destroying a major national referral hospital at the very moment when the residents of the surrounding area would need it the most. That would have added a dangerous new layer of public health crisis to an already severe natural disaster. We have to take note of our vulnerabilities and address them before they manifest. It is imperative that a new Kingston Public Hospital be built to modern international standards with resilience, continuity of care, and disaster preparedness at its core. I am pleased to note that the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority will lead its construction, and Cabinet has already given approval for the acquisition of lands to facilitate the new facility. Madam Speaker, both our major international airports sit adjacent to the sea, and we are vulnerable to storm surges and the long-term effects of sea level rise. When Melissa struck, the operational pressure on both facilities was immense. The question that we must answer honestly and urgently: what happens if one or both of our major international airports is rendered inoperable by a natural disaster? The answer cannot be that Jamaica has no answer. Vernon Field has been discussed as a development opportunity for decades. The vision of an aerotropolis, an airport city that would anchor Jamaica's ambition to become the world's fourth logistics hub, has appeared in strategic documents. I've spoken about it numerous times. Cabinet decisions and development plans have been made since the 2000s. The long-term vision still remains our aspiration. The former Minister Mike Henry, I'm certain that if he is listening, would be happy to hear that the Vernon Field, and that's the airstrip you're looking at, which was built during the World War II era, that by and large the concrete is still intact. It has over 2,000 acres of land around it. A premium piece of real estate is used for drag racing. When that piece of real estate should be our strategic backup and where we make strategic investment to eventually make it into a full-blown airport. And this is why we will advance the Vernon Field Light project, a focused phase rehabilitation of the existing airstrip to create an international airdrome capable of accommodating the largest commercial aircraft in operation. And this means that in the event of a hurricane, earthquake, or other disaster that renders Norman Manley or Sangster International Airport inoperable, or both, Jamaica will have an inland facility capable of receiving wide-body jets, humanitarian relief aircraft, cargo planes, and military transport. The continuity of our aviation connectivity, which is the lifeline of our ecotourism, of our tourism economy, and our import supply chain, cannot depend entirely on two coastal strips of land exposed to the sea. Beyond its resilience function, the Vernon Field Light project will deliver immediate operational value across a range of activities, for example, providing dedicated facilities for international private jets, purpose-built hangar facilities, aviation training and certification, as well as serving as the Maritime Air and Cyber Command base for the JDF. Madam Speaker, the slide now being displayed shows the National Highway Network, including all planned highway projects. What it illustrates is a vision that is within our grasp. A continuous, modern highway network encircling the entire island, connecting every parish, every port, every airport, and every major economic center into a single, seamless system. The objectives of this network are, one, to reduce travel times and transportation costs for businesses and families, to open new corridors for agriculture, industrial, and tourism development, and to strengthen resilience by ensuring that no community is ever again isolated because of a disaster, and of course, to create new lands for low-income housing. Hurricane Melissa has, among other things, reinforced that infrastructure cannot continue to be planned, designed, and built in silos. That approach has cost us dearly. Roads are rehabilitated and then torn up again because a pipeline issue was not anticipated. Drainage deficiencies short the life of otherwise sound roadworks. Slope instability undermines the investments made without adequate assessment of the surrounding terrain. This fragmented reactive model is inefficient, expensive, and wholly inconsistent with the scale and ambition of our national reconstruction vision. We are therefore moving decisively towards integrated infrastructure planning, a framework in which roads, drainage, water, sewage, utility corridors, slope stability, and climate risk are considered together from the design stage and sequenced into a disciplined way through implementation. Integration planning must be matched by stronger infrastructure governance. Part of what involves a long overdue, that is part of the work which involves a long overdue reform of how we classify and manage the national road network. At present, roads are vastly different purposes. Economic significance and strategic importance are treated in broadly the same way. A modern road designation framework will allow us to distinguish clearly between local access roads, parish connectors, strategic economic corridors, tourism routes, agricultural links, and emergency and evacuation corridors. Madam Speaker, what this will do is to inform the budget. Right now, how are roads repaired? So the government, through a process like this, will identify strategically important roads. And those roads are usually networked And all of these roads that are built centrally, they stand up. And they carry quite a bit of volume and maintain our connectivity. But a large part of the road repair and maintenance budget is politically driven. MPs feel, and I feel the same way, that I must have influence over the road construction and repair budget. So in other words, road repairs are also influenced by political pressure. Now, maybe that's not a bad model, but what it does is it helps to fragment how the limited road repair budget is spent. So what happens is that the road repair budget is broken down essentially by constituency and by the effective lobbying of members of parliament. Now, the truth is that that strategy may have served well, but what it creates is a great deal of fragmentation, because every year we spend billions of dollars. But if you look at the road network, you can't really say that you have developed a road network. And at some point, as a country, we have to say, look, we need to make impact with the money that we're spending. And so that is what the One Road Authority is being designed to do. I know there is concern that the One Road Authority is going to take away autonomy from parish councils. No leader of the opposition, that's not what it is being designed to do. So one of the things that we're doing is to do a proper accounting for the roads, so we know how many roads we actually have, how many miles of roads. Then we go through a process of a proper categorization of roads. Then we look at the roads in terms of their strategic value. Are they connecting roads? Do they carry critical manufacturing? Are they critical for evacuation? All kinds. So we look at these things, and then we develop a proper maintenance plan. The first phase of that proper maintenance plan is the SPARK program. Already, the SPARK program is supposed to do over 600 roads. You've gone about 120 roads have been done across the island. I am sure that almost all MPs who are here from the last term can say that there is a road being done in their constituency, a road or two. But aside from developing a kind of structured budget for the maintenance of roads, Madam Speaker, we must develop standards for how the roads are maintained. And there must be an entity that holds road users to account when they destroy the roads. Madam Speaker, it is a great pain to me to drive on some of our very important urban roads, arterial roads, and you see the wanton spillage of concrete. And it's as if they do it with impunity. Well, I am putting all of those persons who are spilling concrete on our roads on notice. When the NARA is established, you will be prosecuted. The One Road Authority, you're listening. The One Road Authority. Because that entity will also have the power to prosecute. Madam Speaker, I want to turn very quickly to housing. This year, the National Housing Trust marks its 50th anniversary. The NHT has stood as one of the most enduring and consequential institutions in Jamaica's development architecture, a testament to the vision of former Prime Minister Michael Mann. Hear the man. say he did some good things, but we should also note, because you know the member from St. Andrew Southwest, Southeast, saying, well, if you're going to talk about history, you must talk about it completely. You must give the full story. Right. So the full story of the NHT is that, of course, the idea to create the NHT was that of Michael Mann. But the NHT was, as you would know, no, I was there. Of course I was. No, but history is not for the people who live it, it's for the people who read it. So, no, you read it. You have to read history. You have to read history. Because, you know, the truth is, leader of the opposition, you know, there are people who live the experience, right? But when they actually read it, they say, but it's different. Because when you have to sit down and put everything into context and bring things into consideration that the person experiencing it would not be able to interpret, you get a fuller experience when you're reading the analytic of the event. But Madam Speaker, the point is that the NHD was formed out of the NIS. Yes. In other words, the fund that we created, the National Insurance Fund, which when we created, the PMT objected to it, turned it around, called it sin. Never was in it. So now, what happened is that, of course, the initial establishment of its structure and the funding came from the NIS. So, I mean, it's just a part of the context of the NHD. But to the credit of former Prime Minister Michael Manley, this is an institution that has served Jamaica well. Madam Speaker, when Hurricane Melissa struck, the NHD did not wait. It moved quickly, decisively, and with compassion that the scale of the crisis demanded. Approximately 30,000 mortgages across 7 of the hardest hit parishes received an automatic 6-month mortgage moratorium, providing immediate relief for mortgagors whose homes remain uninhabitable. That moratorium has been extended. That moratorium, the NHC has extended it until the beneficiary is able to restore their home. A special disaster relief grant of up to $500,000 was made available for contributors for contributors who demonstrated a need, prioritizing those unable to take on additional borrowing, including pensioners and other vulnerable groups. Over 5,500 applications have been received under the grant facility alone, with nearly 1,800 already processed and close to $1 billion disbursed. The NHT has also procured 2,500 semi-permanent housing solutions at a cost of US $19 million for families who lost their homes entirely. The first 300 units are on island and are being cleared for distribution. So finally, we will have some of these modular housing solutions, semi-permanent housing solutions. The NHT also introduced a hurricane relief loan of up to $3.5 million at concessional 2% interest rate to support essential repairs, disaster resilience upgrading, including reinforced roofing, and hurricane shelter and supplementation of insurance claims. Madam Speaker, the leader of the opposition said he hasn't seen any program insisting that restoration must be done to code and standard. I can assure you, Madam Speaker, that this program under the NHT, that the persons who are restoring their homes must do so according to the relevant local building codes. I am pleased to announce that the program will be extended through to March 2027, ensuring that families across the island can access concessional financing to rebuild, not just the standard that existed before, but to an even higher standard of resilience. So this loan program will be extended to next year, March. Madam Speaker, let me give the House and Jamaica a clear picture of where the NHT housing delivery stands. As of the 31st of January 2026, the NHT is actively managing a housing train line of over 41,000 solutions at various stages of development across the island. This includes approximately 10,700 units currently under construction. And you see them, those are telling you where they are all across Jamaica. Nearly 6,000 at contract award stage, and 11,500 in procurement and negotiations, and more than 11,600 in planning and design. Two major new developments have commenced at the Longville Meadows in Clarendon and Friendship Phase 2 in St. Elizabeth, together totaling 2,800 solutions. In the coming financial year, the NHT has projected housing expenditure of approximately $50 billion, with a further subsidy of approximately $21 billion under the External Financing Mortgage Program. This represents one of the most ambitious housing programs in the history of the NHT, covering developments in St. Catherine, Trelawney, Manchester, Clarendon, Westmoreland, St. Thomas, St. Mary, Kingston, and beyond. Madam Speaker, I need to directly address the public debate surrounding the annual transfer from the NHT to support the budget. The opposition has made much of the annual $11.4 billion transfer from the NHT. In the face of fiscal pressures created by Hurricane Melissa, the government had no realistic alternative but to extend the drawdown. Were the drawdown to be discontinued, the $11.4 billion would have to be found elsewhere, resulting in additional taxes beyond those announced. I fully acknowledge that the Jamaican workers contribute to the NHT with the expectation that those funds will be used for housing. That expectation is legitimate, and the government takes it seriously. But we have to be clear on what the real challenges are and how to solve. First, let me give some deeper insight into the $11.4 billion. $11.4 billion is the gross amount that the NHT transfers to the government. Gross. This is net off against the statutory deductions and taxes that the NHT itself is obliged to pay to the government. Technically, therefore, the government gets approximately $7 to $7.5 billion net from the NHT. I think that is a very important contextual element of the problem. No, every year. So, because sometimes we run with the headlines, but we don't really look at the details. All right. Second, the NHT remains a solid, well-capitalized body that is not a fiscal risk to the government. The NHT has not in any way been impaired in its ability to satisfy demand for mortgage loans, even at 0% interest rates. To further improve the cash flow under the External Financing Mortgage Program, NHT contributors can access their NHD mortgage through approved partner institutions instead of going through the NHD itself. The NHD's portion of the loan attracts its usual NHD interest rate even though the loan is processed externally. Furthermore, there has been no issue, very important point, Madam Speaker, there has been no issue of misuse or mismanagement of any NHD fund under my administration, like the Outameni scandal under the field. Talk about corruption. If the funds remained with the NHD, they would largely have been invested in government securities and sat on the balance sheet as lending capacity, waiting for projects that too often do not materialize. Not because the money is unavailable, but because, one, we do not have enterprise-scale contractors in sufficient numbers. That's the reality. Number two, we do not have large swathes of developable land that is close to where people want to live or where sufficient infrastructure exists, so that all that is required to do is to put in the last mile. This is why we are building new roads to open up new lands for housing. That is what we have done in the east, in St. Thomas and Portland, and now we're doing it in St. Elizabeth and Westmoreland. But even when we open up new lands through roads and highways, it takes time to get the infrastructure to the last mile. We have an over-bureaucratization of the development and approvals and permitting process. We are working to simplify and accelerate this, which is why you would have heard about FAST, about NARA. All of these are attempts to accelerate the process. Collectively, these factors mean that the cost of construction in the affordable segment of the housing market makes viable projects difficult to assemble. So the challenge, Madam Speaker, is not that the funds that we take from the NHD deprives the contributor of an opportunity to own a house. That's not accurate. The challenge is, because even though we have taken the funds, in this administration, we have done more than any other. To increase the size of the funds that contributors can access from the NHD, we have increased the number of persons who can co-make or co-join. But more than that, we have reduced the interest rate. Can you imagine you can get a mortgage for 0 interest rate? 0. Right? So in other words, what we have done, very high, 60% of the mortgages are 0%. No, 60% of the yes. So if you earn a certain level, you get a 0% interest rate. And 60% of mortgages pay actually 0% interest rate. So there's this notion that somehow the funds deprive. So the NHD, as I've said, offers 0% interest rates to low-income earners. But demand for mortgages is still limited because of the availability of homes in the price segment that the contributors would be able to afford. Now, Now, this is an important point to note. Further subsidizing demand only ends up increasing prices. As we have increased the contributors' access to financing, what we see happening is an increase in the price of the house. In fact, every time we increase, the price of the house moves with the increases that we give in terms of the funds that they can access. And that tells you more than anything that there is a supply side problem. That is really the issue. How do we expand the supply of houses? And we outline the structural issues that exist, which are not all NHD problems. So further subsidizing demand only ends up increasing prices. We have seen this clearly every time we have increased the NHD loan limit. Prices rise to absorb the additional lending capacity because supply does not keep pace. Jamaica's housing crisis is not a financing crisis, it is a supply crisis. And no amount of money sitting on the NHD's balance sheet will build a single new home without the land, the infrastructure, the approvals, the construction capacity to put it to work. What we need urgently and at scale is a ramping up of housing supply. And when we speak of supply at the scale Jamaica requires, we must think boldly. And that is why this administration developed the Greater Bernard Lodge Development Program as a demonstration of what becomes possible when government planners and the private sector align common vision around serious commitment and execution. I urge members who have not yet seen what is happening in Bernard Lodge to go and take a look at Bernard Lodge and see the housing that is going on. The next major large-scale master plan development will be the Greater Innswood development. And this NHD is tasked to lead the master planning of this development. Madam Speaker, I want to talk about some new measures to increase accessibility and affordability. While we work to increase housing supply, we are always working to ensure that homes we build are accessible to the Jamaicans who need them the most. I'm pleased to announce that effective July 1, 2026, teachers, nurses, firefighters, and members of our security forces and defense forces will benefit from a specially reduced mortgage interest rate based on their length of service. For those with 5 to 10 years of service, the applicable interest rate will be reduced by 1%, and for those with service of 10 years or more, the rate will be reduced by 2%. For young Jamaicans under 35, the NHD will reserve a minimum of 20% of scheme units, doubling from the previous allocation of 10%, and will provide an advance of $2 million to assist with deposit requirements for open market purchases. Also effective, July 1, the home improvement loan waiting period will be reduced from 7 to 5 years, giving existing homeowners faster access to funds for maintenance, security, green energy upgrades, and expansion. All of these were commitments made in our 2025 manifesto. Madam Speaker, in commemoration of the 50th anniversary, the NHD will break ground on 2 new state parks. I don't know the exact location as to where that will go. And the second, Madam Speaker, is in Kingston and St. Andrew. We have to build a park in Kingston and St. Andrew. We remember Emancipation Park. But, Madam Speaker, Madam Speaker, we have started discussions. Madam Speaker, we have started discussions with His Excellency the Governor General on developing a park on sections of the King's House land. That park Madam Speaker, that park will be particularly developed to deal with the needs of our seniors. A place where they can exercise and walk securely. So the NHT again will have that responsibility. Madam Speaker, any serious conversation about land use, productivity and housing must confront one of Jamaica's most visible failure in land utilization, our blighted urban spaces. Across parts of downtown Kingston, Spanish Town and Montego Bay, vacant lots and derelict buildings occupy land that should be among the most economically productive. These sites sit close to infrastructure, jobs and services. The potential is to unlock them. And what we will be doing, Madam Speaker, is to give the framework for unlocking these lands. Since 1995, the Urban Renewal Tax Relief Act has attempted to incentivize investments in such areas. But the results have been limited. Just 56 projects approved in 3 decades. Last year I indicated that we would overhaul this framework to make it fully fit for purpose, and that work led by the UDC with key stakeholders is now well advanced. The new framework will strengthen the core incentive by allowing developers to apply the existing tax credit against up to 100% of income tax liability rather than the current 50%. Madam Speaker, this is a major change. For priority projects, including developments in severely blighted areas, affordable housing and critical public facilities, the credit will increase from the current 33 1/3% to 40%. Unused tax credit will also become fully transferable, allowing them to move with the property when it is sold. A change that removes a major barrier to investment and supports the development and reinvestment model. The framework will also support the wider development ecosystem. Financing for approved projects will receive tax-exempt interest income for up to 8 years. Commercial tenants will be able to deduct 200% of rent, and first purchasers of homes in approved developments will receive a property tax exemption in their first year. So we're looking at a whole suite of incentives to attract investment into urban blighted communities. To address one of the most persistent obstacles, slow approvals, all permits, development approvals, and tax authorizations will be processed through a single digital portal managed by the UDC, dramatically reducing the processing time. Finally, the program will expand beyond downtown Kingston to include sections of central Kingston, Vineyard Town, Swallowfield, Olympic Gardens, Spanish Town, and Cape Manners in St. Catherine, Montego Bay in St. James, Port Antonio in Portland, and Morant Bay in St. Thomas. The new framework will also explicitly include disaster recovery and reconstruction areas, covering sections of Black River, Fonthill, Junction, and Santa Cruz in St. Elizabeth, White House, and the Grill in Westmoreland and Hanover, and Falmouth in Trelawney. So, Madam Speaker, we are going, as I say, hard on attracting investment in urban blighted areas. Madam Speaker, some technical and legislative work remains, but we are targeting the first quarter of 2026-2027 for the new urban renewal framework to come into effect. Madam Speaker, we have a further incentive for redevelopment and relocation work that will be needed to be undertaken in the following parishes: Trelawney, Hanover, Westmoreland, and St. Elizabeth. For the next 2 years, transfer tax on properties in these parishes, Trelawney, Hanover, Westmoreland, and St. Elizabeth, will be reduced by 50%. The purpose of this is that in these parishes, this is where we will have the most need for relocation, which we will need to be able to sell property, and dispose of property. Many persons want to come out of certain areas, and if we can incentivize this process, it would be in the interest of the restoration and recovery, and therefore we have taken that decision to give a special transfer tax break in these areas. Madam Speaker, a vision of this scale demands not only clarity of ambition, but clarity of financing. And let me be direct about how Jamaica intends to pay for what I have described. We will not finance this resurgence through undisciplined borrowing that mortgages the future to pay for the present. Every element of the reconstruction and development program will be financed through a deliberately structured, multi-layered architecture that protects Jamaica's fiscal stability while mobilizing the full range of available resources. The financing rests on 4 distinct pillars: concessional sovereign lending. The core of the US $6.7 billion package secured from our multilateral partners is patient, affordable capital deployed for investment. It will finance the infrastructure backbone of reconstruction where private investment is not possible. So we will invest where public good is established. Private sector mobilization and PPPs. US $2.4 billion specifically intended to crowd in private capital through public-private partnerships for projects where commercial returns can support private investments. The government provides the enabling condition, private capital provides the execution, scale, and commercial accountability. Climate and resilience financing. We will access dedicated climate financing mechanisms, including the Loss and Damage Fund under the UNFCCC, the Green Climate Fund, and other adaptation instruments to fund coastal protection, resilient infrastructure, and community relocation. Jamaica has paid a disproportionate price for the climate crisis, which it did not create. We intend to claim every dollar of climate finance we are entitled to. And 4, domestic long-term capital. We will mobilize Jamaica's own savings from pension funds and insurance companies. And this is what the recent reforms announced by the Minister of Finance are designed to do. We didn't just announce them in a vacuum. The recent changes in how pension funds and other long-term investment instruments can access and deploy their capital. We are not just hopeful, we are incentivizing them to deploy those capital resources into the projects that are going to be managed and executed under NARA and facilitated through the FAST program. So we have thought out an entire ecosystem of measures. Together, these pillars form a financing architecture that is prudent, diversified, and equal to the task before us. Madam Speaker, there are some critical enablers for this to be done. And I think, Madam Speaker, you will agree and permit me if I have a sip of water. one is $44. Very nice, very nice. But I have another present for you. Send this over. We have one for you. This is NWC water. NWC water. So this is about $20. Right? Of course. Now that I brought it here. No, when I heard so when I heard the protestations, of the leader of the opposition that water costs more than gas. So yes, if you bought Avion or some other
People, I was wondering when Andrew gonna take a sip of water.
why would the
What
leader
a
of
man
the
can
opposition
chat.
go and buy water that costs more than gas when there are other options?
Mister. Anyway, bless upon yourself. I am here. I went to cook my dinner and I am back.
To me, it tells me that I wouldn't trust him with managing my economy.
And Mr. Wagwan in a parliament here. You see what going in a parliament. Rest upon yourself. Why? This a whole day thing.
Madam Speaker, what I have described is a resurgent Jamaica, a new Jamaica. But all of this depends on a set of critical enabling conditions that must be in place and must be sustained. There are non-negotiable preconditions for the resurgent Jamaica I have described today to move from vision to reality. Enabler number one, maintaining debt sustainability and macroeconomic stability. You cannot buy water more expensive than gas. Madam Speaker, the first critical enabler is our ability to manage Jamaica's financing with the same discipline and intelligence that we have exhibited over the last decade. Within weeks of Melissa's landfall, the World Bank's rapid assessment estimated physical damage of $8.8 billion. When the full damage and loss assessment led by the Planning Institute of Jamaica was completed in March, capturing not just physical destruction, but direct and indirect economic losses, the figure emerged a huge, staggering $12.2 billion. That is 56.7% of Jamaica's GDP in 2024. Let us put that in full perspective. This is more than 4 times the losses from Hurricane Gilbert, which held for decades the grim distinction of being the most costly hurricane in our history. It is also larger than the FinSAC bailout, which cost the country 42% of GDP. The difference, of course, is that FinSAC was not an external shock, it was a PNP-created shock.
And you not stop
it was a purely domestic homegrown crisis caused by poor policy choices of the PNP administration of the 1990s. It took us 30 years to get back the debt to GDP down to the same level as it was at FinSAC. 30 years. And this is the administration that brought it now. Madam Speaker, it is clear that by any measure, we are now dealing with an economic rupture of a scale this country has never confronted. The fiscal consequences strike from both directions at once. Tax revenues falling as economic activity contracts, while the demands on public expenditure surge for relief, for recovery, for restoration of public infrastructure, the central question is how do we finance the deficit? The opposition has made some suggestions. The first is the introduction of electronic invoicing. This is something that has already been contemplated, but to get it to implementation, you have to first of all build out the digital infrastructure. Madam Speaker, it is a good recommendation. We're not naysaying it. That we were already contemplating it is neither here nor there. What I'm happy about is that it is the opposition that has brought it up. Because one of the reasons why we are very cautious in advancing it is that we know that once you put this out, even though you will hear people up front say, oh, this is a good move, you know that there are going to be issues raised about data security and privacy, issues to do with the digital infrastructure to carry it, because it is a very extensive system. So before you can even move such a system, you have to put in place something called public key infrastructure. You have to have the, they talk about today's world, you require data centers. You will need some very serious data centers, not just cloud data storage, but you have to have local data storage here. So there is a lot of work already being done to put us in a position to layer on this whole business of electronic invoicing. I'm therefore happy that we can say that there is consensus across the aisle that this is something that we must do. The Data Protection Act is already in place. All the work that we have done through NIDS and creating the ICT authority, all of those come together to form what is necessary to build the
So a Data Protection Act is in place when they decide to
the opposition's second suggestion
do this.
is that we should just borrow a little more.
Borrow money.
Literally. The budget does involve significant additional borrowing. But there is a fundamental difference between borrowing that builds and borrowing that burdens. The government is committed to ensuring that every dollar of additional debt is deployed as capital investment.
So what happened to the money then get the other day? They can't use that.
In systems that strengthen our resilience, in projects that grow the economy and generate the future earnings from which the debt can be repaid. Madam Speaker, the opposition spokesman also said that introducing new taxes at this time of economic downturn is pro-cyclical. That is, it tightens fiscal policy precisely when the economy needs room to breathe. That argument would have some validity if the government were using these tax measures to run a surplus, to extract more from the economy than we are putting back in. But that is not what is happening. Even with these additional tax revenues, we are projecting a fiscal deficit. This is why we have suspended the fiscal rules. This year, the government is planning to spend significantly more than it is collecting. So technically, Madam Speaker, we are putting more.
Why would it spend more than it's collect when it collects so much money with there?
A government runs a deficit, it is by definition, or should be provide, depending on what it does with the funds, provide a net stimulus to the economy. It is injecting more into the circular flow of economic activity than it is withdrawing. That is not a pro-cyclical policy, it is counter-cyclical.
Share the live, people.
Madam Speaker, I ask this House to pause and consider a sobering question. Where would Jamaica be today if we had listened to those who, during COVID, urged us to deplete our reserves, abandon our fiscal anchors, and spend without restraint? Where would we be standing now? Not only in the aftermath of the largest disaster in our nation's history, but also facing a fresh wave of global uncertainty driven by rising energy prices, supply chain disruption, and the conflict in the Middle East. Just imagine if we had arrived at this moment with empty buffers, exhausted credibility, and a debt burden already spiraling out of control. We would have had nothing left to give, no capacity to lend $150 million US to the JPS, no space to provide $10 billion in grants through the ROOFs program.
So
no
that's where the money is, then lend
$150
$150 million to the JPS.
From our development partners.
That's why JPS fix the place, fix the lights so quick.
Jamaica would be at the mercy of circumstances rather than in control of them.
Why? Angel look like he have Viet pan him body, man.
Now poses a fiscal risk. Over the past 3 fiscal years, this government has undertaken a comprehensive restructuring of public sector wages and salaries.
Excuse me.
This reform was necessary and long overdue. Over the preceding decade, a gap between public and private sector compensation had grown to a point where the public service was struggling to attract and retain the talent needed to serve our citizens effectively. The restructuring was designed not only to reduce the gap, but to simplify the pay system and bring greater transparency to how public servants are compensated. The results have been significant. The vast majority of workers have received meaningful increases in their take-home pay. However, we must be clear about what this has meant for our public finances. As a result of the compensation reform, the wage bill has risen by approximately 3.7 percentage points of GDP, and now stands at around 13.8% of GDP in 2025-2026, coming from our target previously of 9%. Prior to this reform, public sector wages accounted for 36 cents of every dollar of tax revenue collected. Today, that figure stands at 49 cents. That is a profound shift in the structure of public expenditure, and it demands that we must be careful in how we press for further increases. Madam Speaker, this present juncture in our history requires a different approach to wage negotiations. The government, through consistent inflation targeting, has ensured price stability in the market. Inflation can no longer be the sole driving force for wage demands. Further increases must now be linked to productivity and GDP growth. Increases that are disconnected from productivity gains and GDP growth will not result in higher standard of living and higher wages. They will result in inflation, which erodes the very purchasing power those increases were meant to protect. I recognize that this represents a profound and maybe even controversial paradigm shift. If we are to preserve the macroeconomic stability that we have worked so hard collectively to build, and having demonstrated as a government that labor will get its fair share as conditions allows, unions and the government must work together in reaching reasonable settlements. Madam Speaker, macroeconomic stability has anchored us through every storm, and the government will keep Jamaica firmly anchored. Madam Speaker, the other critical enabling factor is managing crime and violence. The number of murders recorded in Jamaica declined from 1,147 in 2024 to 673 in 2025, a 43% reduction in a single year. The first time in 31 years that Jamaica's murder toll has fallen below 700. And the momentum has not stopped. Between January 1 and March 14, murders have declined by a further 29.4% compared to the same period last year. So we are about what, 20? We are 22 as of yesterday, as of today. So we are 19 days, 22 murders. So we are not doing too badly. We will make it. We will make it below 500. This is clear evidence that sustained intelligence-led security operations and deliberate legislative and institutional strengthening are transforming our national security landscape. This progress has been facilitated by strategic use of emergency measures to give our security forces the time and space to develop their capabilities and at the same time attenuate growing problems. We can safely say, as it is visible for all Jamaicans to see, that we have increased the capabilities
People need to go up on the road, go do
forces,
so walking
and
and
they are
running.
far
You know.
superior to the capabilities
Why not look like
of
Anja
other
got done for now?
elements in the society. The state must have the
Anja
best
not done
intelligence, the
for
best
now.
communication, the best transportation.
Me have to go left Andrew and go up on the road, go get me daily routine. What happened here, son?
Best tactical equipment and weapons.
It's probably, you know, say when the ads chipping that happened. When the ads chipping that happened,
an
you know.
all-out assault and gangs spearheaded by the Joint Anti-Gang Task Force. Gangs are the engine of Jamaica's violent crime. They control territory, they traffic narcotics, they extort communities, and they kill. Dismantling them is not a policing challenge. It is a national security imperative.
Amen.
Madam Speaker, in the coming financial year, the JDF will move forward with the establishment of Camp Warwick, a forward operating base
Camp
on
Warwick.
approximately 100 acres of land at an estimated cost of $5 billion. The forward operating base will enhance the JDF territorial dominance of the Ligoni Plains through enhanced strategic communications and situational awareness. But it is also a resilience building measure, Madam Speaker, because as Newcastle becomes an aged camp, we have to find other strategic locations.
Me know Newcastle, you know, Mara.
And so Camp Warwick.
Me they go do selection board and Newcastle for going at the JDF.
So Camp Warwick is going
Remember
to
Newcastle?
new
Oh
base
my
and
God.
location for the JDF.
We up in a thing at St. Catherine Hill or St. Andrew Hill. That just ring a bell.
Well, I mean, the leader of the opposition asked a question, are we giving up camp? I mean, you would always have a footprint in upper camp. It's not possible to totally demobilize, but we don't speak publicly about national security issues like that, but you always need higher ground. You always
True.
need higher ground.
Right.
Madam Speaker, this budget deepens Jamaica's strategic transition from reactive crisis management to persistent readiness, from crime suppression to sustained reduction, and from fragmented border oversight to coherent domain awareness. It supports investments in layered surveillance, expanded radar coverage, UAV, unmanned aerial vehicle capacity, and
Guys, please go ahead and press the like button and
domain
subscribe to the
ensure
channel.
Jamaica
Share the
never
video
has to
as well.
choose between disaster response and border security.
And watch the ads. Don't skip the ads.
Violence is only one dimension of the
Do not skip
There is
the ads.
also social violence that pervades daily life, domestic violence.
Don't skip
child
the
abuse,
ads. Watch the
violence
ads,
in
bro.
schools and institutions. These are deeply embedded in our social fabric, and will not be resolved by security operations alone. It is.
So anytime the ads come on, they pause the video. Yeah. Me just realize that, so it go. But don't skip the ads. Watch the ads. If you cannot support by super chat or super stickers, just watch the ads. Alright, Miriam, I forgot to say I never share that video here. I share it on Twitter. On Twitter. Share it on Twitter. Share it on... Wait, I need to go turn off my pot. Share it on YT. Hold on. Create posts. Like and share. This is an important debate. All right, I don't know what going here. So live video ended again.
Madam Speaker, gang-driven violence is only one dimension of the challenge. There is also the social violence that pervades daily life, domestic violence, child abuse, violence in schools and institutions. These are deeply embedded in our social fabric, and will not be resolved by security operations alone. It is
okay, let me see if I can find another broadcast, because it seems like this has somebody a phone battery done. All right, let me see if... Okay, so right now I think that's all I have. Unless they continue on another channel. This is all I have for right now. Let me see if Facebook is carrying it. Hold on, Facebook. See if Facebook is carrying it, because that was IG I was on a while ago. All right, let me see if anybody, I need to go study law, Jesus. Let me see. So I think that's it. I don't know if that's the end of it. Wait. It a go on Facebook. Hold on there, people. Because it's very interesting, It's very interesting. It is not boring. Let's see. How are this? Oh, this is a graph that Andrew is showing. Okay, hold on. Let me catch it back.
It's less than half of the Caribbean average of $20.5 per hour, as well as upper income countries in Latin America at $20.
Hold on there, people.
And far below the high income Latin American and Caribbean countries, which produce nearly $40 per hour. And if
I'm trying to.
our labor productivity across selected Caribbean countries, you will see that again, Jamaica is amongst the lowest. But I want you to pay attention to Panama and the Dominican Republic, because those are the countries that, and Trinidad and Tobago, that you would consider our peer groups that we would have to compete against. And that essentially tells you what our problem is. When we look at the graph now being displayed, which compares Jamaica with our Caribbean and regional peers, the picture becomes even clearer. Countries like Barbados, St. Lucia, Suriname, and the Dominican Republic cluster at between $22 to $26 per hour. Trinidad and Tobago exceeds that at $31 per hour. The Bahamas reaches $35 per hour, and Panama is at $43 per hour. Jamaica is at $8.81 per hour, sits near the bottom of the regional distribution, just above 80. We must address the problem of productivity.
You said just above 80.
Madam Speaker, the government is developing a policy position on how to improve our low level of productivity, and I will come to this House at a later date to present this in detail. The issues of productivity is not just a matter of wages and remuneration, but also a matter of culture and socialization. Madam Speaker, every ambition and every goal in my presentation today, every road we build, every industry we grow, every technology we deploy, will ultimately be delivered by people. I have said it many times, and I say it again with the same conviction. Jamaica's greatest asset is our people, not our location, not our resources, not our brand, as powerful as it is. Our investment in people is central to our economic strategy.
Don't like him at any now.
Madam Speaker, if we are serious about competing in a tech-driven, AI-enabled global economy, we cannot educate our children for a world that no longer exists. We must build the institutions that prepare them for the world of today, and more importantly, to compete globally in the world of tomorrow. I'm proud to announce that we will break ground this year on 2 of the 6 STEM schools that I had announced previously.
And if they want to employ me if you run the
first
school.
will be established at Bernard Lodge in St. Catherine, and the second at Minard in St. Anne. Simultaneously, NARA will be building the other 4 STEM institutions that will take students from early childhood straight through to secondary education.
It's about time.
In STEM from the earliest years right through to the door of our tertiary institution. These schools will bring an entirely new approach to the education system, exposing students to science, technology, engineering, arts, and mathematics in ways that build the creativity, innovation, and problem-solving skills that the economy of the future demands. Madam Speaker, my administration...
You should have said STEAM instead of STEM, you know, because him say science, technology, engineering, arts, and maths.
The Hart NST Trust will introduce a pilot of the tertiary learning, earning, and prosper LEAP program to widen pathways from tertiary education to employment by providing paid on-the-job experience. Students of accredited tertiary institutions as participants of the tertiary LEAP program will be able to engage in meaningful work in the public sector and participating private companies. As they work, they will receive a competitive part-time compensation package. LEAP is an opportunity for students to continue learning while hard places them in employment of their choice so they can assimilate into the workplace, earning an income and garnering valuable experience. I must recognize the President of the University of the West Indies Guild of Students, Mr. Roshan Winter, and the President of the University of Technology Students Union, Mr. Percival Roberts, and their teams for serving as the brains of this initiative. This is how my administration makes policy. We first listen to those who serve, then we act collaboratively. I thank these student leaders for putting pen to paper, bringing their ideas forward, leading every step of the way, and working with us to develop the program.
That's good.
Madam Speaker, the National Reconstruction Program on the NARA will require thousands of skilled tradespeople, carpenters, electricians, plumbers, masons, roofers, and the capacity to train them at scale and at speed. Madam Speaker, the Hard Trust NSTA will train construction-related tradespersons who can assist in the Building and Resilience Initiative, as well as propelling the expansion of various sectors. Madam Speaker, we are launching a contractor incubator program, placing selected graduates from HART and UTech on a guided development pathway with access to technical assistance, advanced trading, and concessional financing through the Development Bank of Jamaica to purchase equipment and scale their operations. The intent is to have Jamaicans gain experience on high-value public infrastructure projects and transition faster into sustainable employment and enterprise. Madam Speaker, I like this project because essentially what it is saying, it is an incubator for the new, for a new generation of contractors. Contractors are critical to the utilization of the capital budget. Madam Speaker, I was proud to bring the Hard Trust NSTA closer to Prime Minister Siaga's vision when we eliminated tuition fees up to level 4. Since then, Heart's doors have been open to more than 500,000 young and not so young men and women island-wide. Our mission to expand access to opportunity through skills training is not yet complete. I shall now complete that mission. In the coming financial year, tuitions for all Hard NSTA Trust programs up to level 5, note that this is a bachelor's degree, will be abolished for Jamaicans in the most challenging circumstances. Heart will become free from level 1 to 5 for those who need it most, because my administration understands how important it is to continuously improve access to skills training and give every Jamaican a clear pathway to prosperity. Madam Speaker, the most powerful classroom is the workplace, and the most effective instructor is experience. The apprenticeship model, learning by doing, earning while training, developing under the guidance of industry professionals, is one of the most proven pathways to skill development. Last year, I announced the CARE program, where each member of parliament could nominate young men and women who were not engaged in work, the proverbial youth on the corner. Through CARE, this administration provided training pathways while providing stipend and transportation support. Madam Speaker, a CARE graduate from the Gregory Park area is here with us today. Marley Ashley is in the gallery, and as a young trainee, Mr. Ashley joined the CARE program and was assigned to Colley trading. Through the CARE program, he completed his level 2 certification in business administration with stipend support and transportation support. He gained valuable knowledge, employment skills, and real-world experience that has helped in his next steps. Mr. Ashley is now a full-time employee at Colley Trading. The recovery and reconstruction effort is not only rebuilding homes, it is rebuilding futures. Janie Freighter from Barton District in St. Elizabeth is with us today. He's one of the young Jamaicans participating in the Bridge program, building resilience and inspiring development through guided experience, learning modern construction techniques on the job, working alongside JDF teams and international engineering partners in our western parishes. His story is the story of what this program can do, turning work of recovery progression of a career. This new on-the-job training approach to skills training has demonstrated results, and we are now mainstreaming these lessons in our hard programs, especially in construction, manufacturing, and logistics through partnerships with the IDB. Madam Speaker, I'm particularly happy about this because we have asked the JDF and HART to partner together to ensure that while we are restoring the roofs, that we are training the young men and women, because we are going to need them during the reconstruction. This is what resurgence looks like in human terms. Jamaicans skilled, employed, earning, building, Jamaicans who no longer have to look beyond our shores to find a future worthy of their talent. Madam Speaker, I want to speak briefly about beach access. A planning issue which has been contentious for several decades is beach access. Leader of the opposition raised it in his presentation. Every administration has committed to creating a policy framework to improve and increase Jamaica's access to our beaches. Today I am tabling Jamaica's new beach access policy. Control Act of 1956 and its amendments in 1973 did not adequately address beach access issues and will have to be replaced, and the new policy is the first step in that direction. The policy focuses on developing a modern, inclusive definition of a beach and definition of the foreshore, backshore, and watershed, outlining how the government will improve access, outlining the required legislative amendments, and outlining changes to the consideration for new development approval. Madam Speaker, another element of the policy is developing a framework around investments in man-made or constructed beaches. At the time of the 1956 Act, man-made beaches were not contemplated. Well, obviously man-made beaches have been around a long time, but it was contemplated as an endeavor in Jamaica. I think now we have to integrate that into a new framework of managing our beaches. So the policy, Madam Speaker, affirms government's commitment to ensuring that Jamaicans have access to their natural public assets in an orderly, safe, equitable, and sustainable way. Madam Speaker, we want to once and for all end any ambiguity, dispute, or any view that Jamaicans are being dispossessed and disconnected from accessing their beaches. Madam Speaker, last year, we signaled our intention to continue the journey from a minimum wage to a livable wage. And we indicated that the next step would be to increase the minimum wage to $18,500. However, in the aftermath of Hurricane Melissa, many of our businesses are rebuilding, many households are still recovering, and the economy is now navigating yet again another external shock in terms of energy prices and shipping costs. In this context, the government believes it is important to strike the right balance by continuing to improve earnings of workers while recognizing the realities employers face. We therefore propose a measured increase in the minimum wage from $16,000 to $17,000 effective July 1, 2026. This does not represent a departure from our long-term policy objective. The government remains committed to transition from a minimum wage to a livable wage. And as economic conditions stabilize, we will continue the phase increase necessary to realize that vision of the Jamaican worker. So, Madam Speaker, July 1, 2026, the minimum wage will move from $16,000 to $17,000. We continue to make the investment in lifting wage levels because ultimately we are going to have to address the productivity issue. Madam Speaker, we are not a nation that has had it easy. We are a people forged in the fire of history, shaped by struggle and suffering. We know in our bones, in our blood, in the memory carried across generations, what it is to be tested. Slavery could not break us. Colonialism could not diminish us. Poverty could not extinguish us. Debt could not define us. COVID could not stop us. Hurricane Gilbert could not silence us. And Hurricane Melissa, the most powerful storm this earth is capable of producing, could not and did not defeat us. Beyond any doubt, we have proven resilience as a nation. But resilience, Madam Speaker, is not our destination. Our test now is the harder one, the test of whether we have the vision to see in the rubble of what was the foundation of what can be. The test of whether we are bold enough, disciplined enough, and united enough to take everything we have endured and turn it into everything we deserve. To not merely survive, but to soar, to thrive, to move deliberately, decisively, and together from resilience to resurgence. Madam Speaker, I believe we are equal to that task. I know that we are equal to that test. I believe it because from the farmer I met in Westmoreland, standing in a field, stripped bare by Melissa, he is already talking about how he's going to prepare for his next harvest. I believe it because of the mother who cleared rubble with her hands so that her children would have somewhere to sleep, not waiting to be rescued, not surrendering to despair, simply doing what Jamaican mothers have done across every generation of our history. I believe it because the young entrepreneur who lost everything, but who is ready to start again.
I'm not tired. They're still
These are not exceptional Jamaicans. They are the typical
This
Jamaicans.
is very interesting, though.
And that is the most powerful thing I can say about this country. Jamaica's greatness has never been in our size or our resources. It has always been in our people. The fastest humans on earth are ours. The most recognized music in the world is ours. The most resilient spirit in the world is ours. Madam Speaker, history will record that Melissa was the strongest storm to ever strike the island. But history will also record something else. That the Jamaican people, that the people of Jamaica were stronger than the storm of Melissa. We have proven that we can withstand. Now it is time to show the world that we can build. A Jamaica where every Jamaican in every parish, in every town, in every community on this beloved island can look at their country and say with pride and with certainty, this place was built for me and by me. And I was built for this place. That is the Jamaica we are building. Madam Speaker, this remarkable, irrepressible, godless island of our beloved Jamaica is rising. Resurgence is not a promise. We are not, resurgence is not a promise we are making to Jamaica. It is our destiny, and we are claiming it together. May God be our refuge and guide in restoring what the storm took away. And may what we build in its place be greater in strength, richer in justice, more beautiful in spirit, and more Jamaican than anything that came before. Thank you. And may God today and every day continue to bless Jamaica that we love.
House Leader, thank you.
Madam Speaker, we thank the Prime Minister for his visionary and comprehensive presentation. Reminding us, Madam Speaker, that we are in safe hands as we chart the course forward. Madam Speaker, we do have some matters to treat with before we leave, in keeping with the Prime Minister's presentation. So I ask for the recommittal of I ask for the suspension of the debate and the recommittal of announcements and notices of motions.
Thank you, House Leader. The question is that the budget debate be suspended until the 24th of March 2026. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. The request was also for the recommittal of announcements and notices of motion given orally. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. Announcements, Clerk.
Laid on the table of the House are the following. The Beach Access and Management Policy for Jamaica, dated March 2026, and its related Ministry Paper number 20 of 2026, titled Beach Access and Management Policy for Jamaica, from the Office of the Prime Minister. Thank you, Madam Speaker.
Notices of motions given orally. Prime Minister.
Thank you, Madam Speaker. I beg to give notice that at the next meeting of the House I will move to introduce and have read a first time a bill shortly entitled the National Reconstruction and Resilience Authority Act 2026.
Thank you, Prime Minister.
Madam Speaker, it is not intended to do any further business today. We will reconvene on Tuesday when we will close the budget debate with our Minister of Finance, the Honorable Favour Williams.
The money lady that you know. Our money girl that you know.
Move for Parliament to be adjourned until Tuesday, March 24 at 2.
That's the money lady. Tuesday, March 24. Oops.
Members, the question is that members, the question is that the House do now adjourn for Tuesday, March 24th, 2026 at 2 p.m. Those in favor? Those against? The ayes have it. This honorable House now stands adjourned.
I'm ready to leave. This is interesting. Let's see. So yes, people, this was the budget debate. It was very interesting. I said I can't find one picture put up here, so it is very interesting. Yeah, it is very interesting. It was very interesting. There were some things that was called out that was stated by the Prime Minister. I'm only here for in part. He basically mentioned a lot of things that will be happening in Jamaica, a lot of reconstruction. And before he left, he said he will be talking about the Reconstruction Act, right? So some things that they went over, let me just do a little summary. They talk about tax revenue falling and the economic activity contracting. And he was basically wondering how to address the deficit in finance, some things that was suggested. And he said these were suggested by the leader of opposition. One of them is about some sort of digital taxes. Yes, Master. So, but they said there was a concern about the data protection, and they said they have the Data Protection Act in place to address that concern. He also said that the leader of opposition, one suggestion was to borrow more money, but he is, based on my understanding, he is strongly against borrowing more money, right? So, I like the fact where he put out a whole picture of how he's gonna reconstruct Jamaica, and he talked about the different parishes and different things that will be happening in different parishes. Yes, and he mentioned that Jamaica, pretty much in my words, he basically would imply that Jamaica did very well in terms of monetary because they were able to lend. They were able to lend JPS $150 million to work on the damages, and that's pretty much basically why a lot of people got electricity. They indicated that about, how much percent is about 99% of Jamaica already have electricity. So there's about 1% who doesn't have, and that's probably the 1% who live way in the boondocks. Because my family members, they got electricity from last month. So that was, well, we can't say that was a blessing because we were looking to think that they would be getting electricity April, May, but they got electricity in February. So that's very good. All right. He talked about the murder that was declined from 1,147 to 623 last year. He compared 2 years. And he said, so far this year, there's another decline, probably a 22% decline. Yes, so that's very, 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 very good for, for Jamaica. He also mentioned the camp. He said that Camp Warwick would be there in would be in what you call it, Ligani Plains, would be in Ligani Plains. And he mentioned Newcastle. And when he mentioned Newcastle, boy, I ring a bell, because I remember years ago when I was in my 20s, I went to Newcastle because I wanted to be a officer in the JDF, but I never work out because I did never do one of the tests what I need to do. And that was where you do your physical test, like your 3 mile run, your rappelling, your all the hard physical activities. That's where you go and you do that part of it. Written test and everything, that was very good. Me passed them there with flying colors. But there was one of the physical tests me never do, and that's the one with when you jump across the 6'6" ditch. Me say no sir. I think a 10-foot ditch. Me say me never even reach 6 feet. Or me if you jump across one 10-foot ditch or look at that. So I did not do that. So he's saying that there will be Camp Warwick in Ligani Plains, and he's saying that it's always good to be on higher ground. And I remember Newcastle is way up in the hills. I think it is in St. Andrew Hills, if me not lie, because we had to go to Up Park Camp, and then they took us from Up Park Camp to Newcastle, and that's when we did they call it, I don't know what they call it now, but back in the days, they call it selection board. That's where we did the selection board. And that's where we did all the physical activities. All right. Then we have, he mentioned STEM schools. And I think he really meant STEAM schools, because when he explained what he was talking about, he said science, technology, engineering, arts, and math. And if arts is involved, it is literally STEAM and not STEM. But I just saw things set up. When we reach a certain age, we kind of, you understand? And he said 2 schools will be established in one in Bernard Lodge and one in Minard St. Anne. And then he said after that, there will be about 5 schools established across Jamaica. And it will take those kids from kindergarten all the way up, early childhood all the way up to high school. So that's very good, because right now, STEM school is one of the choices in my area where kids can go. But even though they incorporate them in the classrooms and all of that, before me leave, because I tell us I did have to left the debate and go cook me dinner, and then right now me never mash it up yet, so that me I go do, me I go mash up some food right about now. So anyways, after that, it was very, very interesting. When you see me sit down and listen to it, you can tell it was very interesting. And one more thing, he talks about the Art NSTA, right? Or NST, Heart NST. And he said they had a program that they put in place that is called LEAP. And LEAP means learning, earning, and prosper. So, back in the day when we have the heart, like people going to hard school or whatever, they just go to hard school and they come back and they try to find a job, or they probably can't find a job and all of that. But now they're saying that they will have it where while you're studying, you will be earning. So that sounds very, very good. That reminds me of when I was going to high school and they let you do why name work experience. So whatever you choose to do in high school, they place you at either hotel or wherever it is you want to do, and they give you work experience. I remember when I go high school, the place where them put me at some place, I think at Jamaica Tourist Board in the Grill. And so then people then never give me a dime. And then I had some other friends who were in other places. Our friends were at at where the other hotel them name, some other hotel and Negril, and they were getting paid. And boy, me did feel a way, you know. Come here, say, me ratted, oh, them I get money, I mean, I get none. But anyway, I saw the thing set up. But yes, so the learning, earning, and prosper through the heart, it's a great idea. So we're just gonna wait and to see all these ideas come to perfection. And he also mentioned how he's gonna built up Montego Bay and Lucy. He said Lucy Town is gonna move because right now Lucy is below sea level, you know. As one spoonful of water falls, so you know, as one spoonful of rain falls, so you know, Lucy start flood out, you know. So I think he's saying that they're gonna build a bypass highway, and once they do that, then they're gonna move the town away from the shore. Away from the sea. I don't know how to put that. Yeah, because Lucy is a town that is below sea level. Definitely below sea level. All right. So bless up all who live at Lucy, and he talk about Falmouth and all the different parishes that will be could be have Rick Stamp TV something on my screen that will be you know, will be established in Jamaica. And he talked about the what you call it now. He talked about me Heidi. He talked about the boy, me lose me thought. Yeah, he thought about how he's gonna build up Montego Bay, and he said that top road is gonna be like a dual road, and then bottom road is gonna be. And I don't know Montego Bay, I don't know me I talk about. Bottom road is going to be like a type of pedestrian type, you know, road. So people moving from so basically he want to set it up where the tourists that comes to Jamaica, the tourists that come to Jamaica, when they go there, let's say they stop at where the at Breezes. Well, Miranda Breeze is the name again. Anyway, say they stop at a hotel that is on Bottom Road and they want to go to they will have choices to go different places instead of just being in the hotel and, you know, waiting for them to do the tours through the hotel. They can always come out the hotel and walk and go places, and it will be safe for them. That's the picture I'm getting, and if that's the picture, then it will be a very good picture. Anyway, I'm gonna end this live right now. I don't know if I have to go cut out nothing because at the end of the day, I don't know the thing set up. And people, let me tell you something, boy. I tell you say, me wake up one morning, yesterday morning, and when I look for my TikTok account, me not see my TikTok account. Can you believe that? I mean, say, boy. Can you believe that TikTok banned my account? So I don't know what I'm going with them, you understand? So right now, I make up one new account with zero followers. So if you don't want to see me do on TikTok, I can't go live nor nothing on TikTok because I have 1,000 subscribers. Right now, I have 0 subscribers. I have 3. I have Rick Stam, Imhotep, and Kizzy. Hey, so anyway, big up on yourself. Me know me have to put that out the car, boy. Me I tell us, me say me grieve. If you dey cut me, you would say no blood to rotted. A pure water, you that say they run out of my body. To all me grieve, and people, me telling you something. When I look into it, you know, and this is totally different. This is even off topic. But when I look at it, you know, me say, all right, me run go over TikTok upon IG, go complain. I mean, I say people, when me go over there and talk, me complain, you know. Me say, is a whole bag of people. Me see, I put comments under the comment me put, me rated. Me say, me never realized that as so much people TikTok take them account. And the last thing I did on my account was exercise. And on my account, me cook, me work out. Me listen music, me dance. That's it. Me not do nothing else. Right? So me run go over IG and me say, me link up TikTok and me say, why is my account banned? All I do is cook and exercise. And me say, one whole bag of people. Some say, same for me. Fix mine. Some say, oh my God, this happened to me. This person say, this a person say they can't help. Anyway, this a person say it's because you have the word official on your username. They don't like that apparently. And this person said they have a page name, whatever you call it, official, and they banned it yesterday. And me say one piece of blast and them a blast TikTok. Somebody say your platform is out of control. Creators are getting wrongful bans and restrictions, while your AI autoresponders tell us nothing and no human ever reviews our cases. You punish the wrong people, ignore appeals, and hide behind bots while creators lose income, community, and trust. This isn't safe. It's lazy, inconsistent enforcement, and it's abuse to the people who keep their app alive. We deserve real answers, real support, real humans, not canned AI. At this point, a class action against TikTok for repeated wrongful enforcement and zero accountability feels overdue. Somebody else say, my account is stuck and not recommended with no violations. Somebody say, nice one, TikTok. I'm suspended and I can't get in my account. And it's still there. I can log in, but every time I try changing password, it said account suspended. Somebody say, my account just got banned without warning. Can anybody help? Some people, when me look at it, me say, me not feel bad because I know me alone. But, I'm like, it's crazy because all you do, go over there and skin out, do nothing crazy, chat nothing but crap. And the people them do all them the bull crap there, their account is alive and well. And your account get banned. Me not understand. Somebody said, I don't know why my live access was suspended permanently. I worked so hard to build my account. Can anyone please look into this matter? And this person said, TikTok, you banned my account for nothing. I did not do something wrong. A lot of people has accounts like this, but you don't block them. Why? Why this account? What can I do? I have the account long time. Oh, God, that's why they are so worse, Abby. Why? Somebody say, hello, can you fix my account? I cannot put on my password. I want back my account. So people, if your account banned, I know you're alone. Somebody say, fix your effing app. My FYP is messed up. Well, at least you have a FYP. Somehow we don't even have the F off of the Y and the P. All right. But once I watch a video, you watch it till the end, But I maybe might cut out some of Andrew and just, leave some of these on it. Please come back. All right, let me see. Me read one more. Mr. Mira, ask some letter up here, people. People, me ask some letter up here. Them write letter to TikTok. TikTok ban my account for no reason. Hello, it's cool though. I ain't going be on it. No. So this person said, then now go back on it. So listen to what the person here write, because this is serious something that person here write. Dear TikTok support team, I am writing to express my concern regarding an issue with my account. Bleep, bleep, bleep. I earlier this morning, a big letter this, Earlier this morning, my messaging access was suddenly banned without any clear reason. I am extremely disappointed and confused as I have not knowingly violated any guidelines. Messaging is very important to me, especially because I currently have active TikTok streaks that I have worked hard to maintain. If I do not regain access, those streaks will end permanently. TikTok not care. Anyway, somebody said, I respectfully request that you review my account as soon as possible and restore my messaging access. If there was any misunderstanding or mistake, I really appreciate clarification so I can avoid any issue in the future. Please treat this matter as urgent. TikTok not fought for them. TikTok is not farting on them, people. Me say, when me go through and I read and I say, wait. Me say, wait. Somebody say, I was on my live, ended to go get some food. Try to go live again. All I see, my live access suspended. I don't know why my live access was suspended permanently. Somebody said, please help me recover my TikTok account. I forgot my password and no access to link. Email I submitted. Lord Jesus. This said this reel has 152 comments from Facebook. So people, that are going from what are going. So TikTok, you know, if you do nothing crazy, TikTok just probably decides, say, all right, me just go ban the account here where probably not bringing no revenue. Me no know. Or them are bringing too much revenue. Me no know. But people, a lot of people run over on TikTok, on Instagram, and are complain, including me. So let me see, because me they run over Twitter too, Me rated. And the only thing me like with TikTok is like you can go up there, you can build a vibe, you can play your music, you can chill and build and all of that. So me like that part about it, but boy, me I tell you, the struggle is real. The struggle is real round that one part. And TikTok don't answer nobody, you know. They are not answering anybody. But anyway, big up on yourself. This is Lady B Official. I just made my meal and I'm going to consume it. Big up to the Prime Minister of Jamaica, Andrew Holness. And they said the next meeting is next Tuesday at 2 p.m. And that's when the money lady, a.k.a. Faval Williams, the money lady, will be telling us how she go spend the money for the country. So, gear up for that. I think I go there at school, you know. Mariah, you know, so I go there at school till about 6 o'clock next week, Tuesday. But anyway, if I'm there, I'll go ahead and probably, me no know, I go set up him. I can probably call my son for making, anyway, may I forgot figure that out. But it's very interesting to listen to these things and know what's going on in the country and know, you know, all the little things that they plan to do and all of that. Anyway, bless upon yourself. This is Lady B Official. And remember, subscribe to the channel, share my videos. Also, right now, my new me have one other TikTok is called Lady B Official 1. So I don't know what I go on with that. I probably change the name in another week and just say Lady B TV or something like that. So bless upon us.